times. I know from North Carolina experience, those guys that renourish the beaches, they have like every 4-year contract. They just keep coming back. They just keep doing what you have to do. It's expensive, but it's going to be cheaper than all the real estate that you would lose on the coast.
Right.
So we were looking closer to this building here. Look how much higher the water's come, guys.
Oh yeah. Can you?
I'm going to go just to the right a little bit here. There you go. Going to zoom in just a little bit.
So we're looking south,
Yep.
almost like you're looking down toward Pass-a-Grille, but
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
And you see those whatever beach boxes or whatever they are floating there in the water right now.
Yep, yep. I'll zoom in on those too. We'll see what we can see there. So one thing that happens when you get storms like this is you get a ton of debris in the water.
Yeah.
Come on, focus for us here. You get a ton of debris in the water, and that will last for weeks. So we have a big boating community here in Tampa Bay, and there's going to be a lot of stuff out there. There's going to be a lot of docks. I mean, look, Adalia came through, and if you're familiar with Marker 1 up in Dunedin, beautiful marina there, gone. The docks were gone. The marina itself, the building, fine, but the docks are basically gone, and they're having to rebuild the whole thing. And that was from 2 to 4 foot of surge from Adalia. Yeah. This is almost twice.
And keep in mind, a lot of folks in this area are liveaboards. This is their home that is often damaged in this. We saw it in Gulfport recently. We've seen it in other parts. We've seen, producers asking us to just double check on the status of the tornado warning.
Yep, we're still looking at 645. It's down south here. We can come back over to the radar. They still have this one that's going until 645. This is the very weak one, and in fact, what they've done is they say they're going to let it expire, but it doesn't go away. This is that area. There's no concerns there. Myakka Head's fine. Sandy's fine. It's, in fact, not even in the warned area anymore. So we were technically, this is the cell. That's the warning. That's why we haven't been talking about it much. The other one that's further down south, that one will eventually be up towards Arcadia. It right now is still down southeast of Port Charlotte, almost east of Port Charlotte. It's this area here south of Morgantown, right there. So Arcadia is up in here, and it's going to be a little while before it gets to that. As far as that rotation goes, that one even looks a whole lot less than what it did. So tending to weaken. Look at it here a little bit different way. Yeah, it looks like that one's kind of falling apart just a little bit. So good news there as far as that's concerned. We don't have technically any tornadic activity in our area, but that's that. This is the warned cell here, and that's going up towards Arcadia. If this were to go all the way to Arcadia, it'd be about 7:01. So we've got about 16 minutes, 17 minutes or so for that to happen.
Hey, Bobby, do you think that we could check in with Hannah, who's up in Hernando County, and just see what they're seeing up there? Or do you want to stick on this?
Sure. Yeah, no. I mean, sure. We're fine right now. Arcadia's fine. We don't have really any tornadoes in the area right now. That warning is down south of us, down in Charlotte County. So I'm fine if you guys are at this point. I'd love to know what's going on there, because Hernando's, remember, we're seeing it first here in Pinellas, Manatee and Pinellas, parts of Sarasota, but certainly Manatee, certainly Pinellas and Hillsborough. So we want to look at Bayshore. We want to look at anything in Pinellas, and then they dropped it. Good. Then we'll go up to there we go.
And we know the surge as you go north is going to be worse, and that's what we've been talking about.
And you can see Hannah. Hannah, you are live right now. I know you've been up there. You've been seeing the different conditions. Can you tell us where you are and what's going on right now?
Hey, Courtney, I'm at Bayport Park Pier, where we are feeling a lot of strong winds right now. The rain has subsided, but we have seen some strong rain bands move through this area as well. And as we've been driving around a bit safely, of course, we have seen plenty of debris in the roadways, and we have heard of at least one downed tree in Hernando County over near Brooksville that has blocked off some roads at this point. And all day as we've been driving around, we've seen people in this county prepare for this storm, prepare for what's expected to be catastrophic storm surge in this area. And one of the spokespeople for the county recently told me they distributed 36 1,000 sandbags this week as people have prepared for this storm. You know, one of the couples who has been preparing for this storm is right here with me. And Debbie, you're just telling me you're in Spring Hill. Right. This is not something that you are quite used to seeing. We get strong storms in this area, but you were just saying this might be the worst you've seen.
This has been the worst we've seen. We've been here for about 21 years and we've missed the big storms, but this is the closest worst storm that we've seen so far.
What have you been doing in the last 24 hours or sooner to prepare for what we're expecting to see blow through Hernando County?
You know, we've been making sure we have things battened down at the house, but basically we've been watching the weather and kind of tracking the storm itself to make sure it doesn't take that turn like Charlie did several years ago. You know, it would be unexpected if it would have come more closer to us. But this is as close as I want it to come.
I was trying to describe for my anchors and everyone watching what this feels like out here. You've been out here for a little bit. Can you just describe what we're seeing, what we're feeling right now out here?
The wind gusts, which I don't even know how far they are, but they blow. I mean, everything it shakes the car. It's unreal.
Orange definitely can have tornado warnings. So pay attention as we have storms coming in off that Atlantic. Okay. Big storms off the Atlantic. The other story that's now becoming a little bit more something we need to watch is tomorrow and through tonight. We now have enhanced for Carolinas. All right. That was up there earlier. Storms through tonight and tomorrow. Our system's going to park and we're going to see storms coming in off the Atlantic. Okay. So don't be surprised if we continue with tornado watches and warnings through tomorrow. And this is some of the areas that just were hit with PTC 8. Okay. Now you're going to be dealing with tornadoes. All right. So that's an updated Storm Prediction Center map. I want to show something real quick and then I got to sign off. Julie's calling me. I think it's getting pretty rough at home. Old school steering maps. This is something I was going to post earlier, but I didn't want to get into this whole steering thing. But this is kind of what Reed Timmer's talking about. He's actually west of me. We have a high pressure development here over the Atlantic. We have a low pressure coming in currently that this is going to eventually merge into. So we have a low pressure, mid-level low. We have a high pressure, and it's kind of splitting that gap. This is old school steering right here. Why our system is slowing down a little bit earlier is it was reacting to this kind of steering change. That's when storms react to steering changes. They sometimes slow down a little bit. So that's what it's doing. It's shooting the gap, high pressure to the east and low pressure to the west. It's pretty fascinating to watch this happen. And if you look at, the latest tracks, the reason our tracks are pointing that direction is it's getting pulled into that low pressure area. So very odd, different type of setup, but it is a category 4 and it is unfortunately appears to be strengthening. Okay. So everybody should have already evacuated by now. Unfortunately, I talked to a local sheriff, and a lot of folks up here did not evacuate. They're trying hard. They're going door to door. Category 4 storms is nothing to mess around with. This is pretty serious. And again, this orange ball is tropical storm force winds. The darker orange ball is hurricane force winds. So even though we got that cone, we got hurricane winds way outside that cone. Hurricane Hermine 16 went almost the same track here in Tallahassee area. And locals told me we had no power for 2 weeks because of Hermine. That was category 1, right? So I still think we're going to see some sneaky effects for Tallahassee, especially with these trees. So, all right, that's it for now. I'll do an update here later on. We will be streaming live pretty soon through the night. So grab your
indicated, I believe, if Michaela could correct me, radar indicated tornado warning. So that means that we necessarily didn't have spotters that saw this with their eye, but we are picking it up with the radar beam. I'm sorry, say that again?
So they basically are issuing this, obviously radar, because they just can't see it. But when we've seen debris in the air earlier, and when we've seen now pictures from earlier water spouts that became tornadoes down south, you take all of these seriously, because now they certainly could be producing a tornado on the ground. So Coronet, 7 o'clock. Winston, just after that. Gibsonia around 7:11. That would give you about 20 minutes from right now. It doesn't look super impressive as far as rotation goes.
If the controller can pop up, I think they have max 1. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is Lakeland. So Lakeland is included in that polygon. Hillsborough and Polk County, again, under that tornado warning. We do see there's raindrops there. Of course, the clouds really moving. Not too many trees to look at, but again, the water is continuing to rise. That's another concern, as we have Helene that has been upgraded to a Category 4 hurricane, and we are getting from these outer bands these tornadoes that continue to spin up. And I believe if you okay, we're spinning the camera around.
Yeah, I'm driving it over to the right a little bit. This is pretty much the area in which we're looking. I can't see anything. It's going to be right between there and Plant City. And our Plant City camera is probably not going to be able to see that from that particular angle, but it will go by right there. It's down towards the Edison area right now. If you're in Willow Oak, we got weather 2 up.
Yeah, I think they had weather 1 up. So if you guys could switch it, perfect. All right, so if you...
There's weather 2, so you can see this is the area right in here.
Yes.
All right, and it's very weak, all right, very weak. But Willow Oak, you want to be in your safe spot. And in fact, you know, this is a much more populated area getting into Lakeland and Plant City. And this is going to be moving almost due north. It's going to be moving just about like this.
Yeah.
All right, so all of these roads that we're seeing out there, all that area from Willow Oak up to I-4. I think it stays west of Medulla and east of Trapnell, but if you live right out in the middle of all that, that's where we're talking about, right? Pipkin Road, West Pipkin Road, Yule Road, you get over towards Shepherd Road. All of those areas, you need to be in your safe spot. It's crossing 60 right now from the south to the north towards I-4, which is all the way up here. See that? But it's going to be eventually up towards Drainfield Road. I do think it will likely miss downtown Lakeland and stay west of 37, which you see out here. And it looks like it will avoid Plant City too. So really good news there, but certainly all of these areas right here in the middle. Buell Road, Ripken Road, right up there, Yeomans, Winston, these areas in between Plant City and Lakeland. It's south of there right now, but it's crossing State Road 60 right now. The velocity, here it is there. Let me take this thing off here. See another view. Very weak looking signature. Very, very weak looking signature at this point. Doesn't mean there's not a tornado there. It lasts very long at all, and in fact, it doesn't even look like there's a big rotation there at all at this particular point. But still, Willow Oak, you want to be in your area. Medulla, if I was you, I would too. You know, just to be safe, especially if you live west of 37 and just southwest of downtown Lakeland. I still am not seeing anything on the camera over in Lakeland. Doesn't mean anything, obviously. A lot of these are rain wrapped, so it's going to be very, very tough to see. But we will end up seeing that move over State Road 60 right now. In fact, it's just about over that now. And yeah, a little bit of rotation there. Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. Again, this is Doppler indicated. Doesn't look to show a lot of debris or anything like that. Thank goodness. You can see a little bit. You want to see this right in here. See where it says that's where the early rotation is. Some of that could be, and it was a little bit stronger, I think, when it flared up, but now it's pretty much gone. In fact, let's just back up our velocity and see it much better couplet right in there. Yeah, that's definitely falling apart. Definitely falling apart. Michaela, anything on chat? They're going to keep going?
I haven't been able to get into seeing anything from chat quite yet, but still seeing that this is just, like you've been saying, relatively ragged. Nothing really, not a huge couplet within this system. It's more just, hey, we've got some strong winds, potential rotation, and all of these have been radar indicated. So we haven't had someone on the ground see these. this is when the National Weather Service says, hey, we've got the right ingredients to see some rotation. We're going to put a warning on this to keep people safe. And then they'll come out and do a survey either tomorrow or the day after to see if we did, in fact, have tornadic activity or if this was straight line wind damage. Either way, the National Weather Service will come out to verify what went down with these systems that are coming through. Even though they're very fast, they're short-lived, we are still going to make sure that we're doing our due diligence here to verify what happened with these.
They've expired it. It's allowed it to expire. I do see that Port Manatee, which is the south side of the bay, Tampa Bay, the water levels in the last 30 minutes have come up 1.5 feet. 1.5 feet in 30 minutes down at Port Manatee in Tampa Bay. That is the surge. 6:57 right now. It's been about 6:30 or so. So the timing that we were forecasting is holding right now. So those water levels should continue to go. If you've got Weather 2 up right now, I'll kind of show you what we were looking at here. Here's the timing that we were thinking of everything and what the tides are doing. This is prime time. This is going to be prime time for the peak. And you can see basically the tide was trying to go out, right? It's going down at 5:20. Now the tide's coming up and we're peaking. We're going to be peaking out in this area here for the next several hours.
Bobby, can you put that in perspective? The water rising, you said 18 inches in the last 30 minutes. What does it normally rise? What do we normally see?
So tides here are a little different. It's not like over on the East Coast every 6.5 hours, something like that. The tides that we see here generally they can be all over the place. You can have one that's 4 hours apart. You can have one that's almost 12 hours apart. In this instance, you can see 4:16 this afternoon and then yesterday afternoon. And then the next tide wasn't until 8:41 this morning. So that's a long time. This is a much shorter time, right? That's about 9 hours or so from the low tide that we just passed to when we go to a high tide. So here we are now. We've passed the low tide. The tide is coming up. The tide itself would go from about 1/2 foot below to 2 feet. So we would expect a 2.5 foot rise. Not 1.5 feet in 30 minutes, right? That doesn't happen. Not here, not with these particular tides. That is happening a little bit because the tide's coming up, but more so because those winds are blowing onshore now. And there's actually a bulge of water that has been pushed by this storm that's been offshore because those onshore winds, the south and southwest winds have been blowing out there, so they've been pushing water. That 30-minute rise of 1.5 feet is likely a lot of that. It's our wind pushing it up, and it's a little bit of that bulge. And here we go. We're getting into the peak of it. So hopefully, if you were asked to evacuate, you did so because this is prime time. And I think even if it peaks, say around 10, 11, it's still going to take forever for this to come back down because we have a high tide. And the tide after that doesn't drop a super quick amount. So the winds will come down, the water will come down, the surge will come down, but it's going to take a while, and then you're going to have a lot of standing water left around the area. So definitely going to be looking at the worst of it here. Now this is just in the Tampa Bay area. If you notice, we basically have these numbers going even higher the further north you go. And that's because they'll get just a little bit more wind. So 8 to 12 up there in the Pasco area, and then 10 to 15 up into Citrus County. And guys, look, this is going to be record stuff here, right? We're almost at the point now where we're above records for most of it. Now, the numbers that you see here for the forecast, these are the top end numbers, right? So just say you subtract 3 from all of that, we would still be basically setting records 2 to 3 feet from almost all of that. All right, and so these records, some of them go back to last year, but you've got Clearwater not seeing over 4 feet since 1993. In Clearwater, by the way, let me pull up that camera. They have water in the parking lot now right at the pier. So it is really coming up out there at the beach. And of course, that water is not just at the beach, it's up into the bay. It's going to be into St. Pete as well. There you go. You can see Pier 60 sitting right there. The water's hopping over the wall there at the sidewalk. It'll be really interesting to see. I bet that inflatable slide stays. Maybe they've got it spiked down. It might actually have a chance of staying. But again, guys, this is we live in paradise, and it's fun. It's great until something's closed. You're like, what's wrong with it? Closed down. And we've had our issues, right? Adalia, we've had Debbie, we've had our issues. This is one of the biggest issues most people in this area have seen as far as surge goes. So, we don't have a landfall and hurricane. Thank goodness we're not dealing with 100-mile-per-hour winds knocking everything down on top of what we're dealing with right here. But I'm telling you what, and this is not just the beaches. This is up into the bay, Oldsmar, downtown Tampa. All of those areas are going to be seeing very, very high surge levels coming up.
Yeah, Bobby, we just got a report saying at Tampa Bay, we've got sustained winds of 54 miles per hour with wind gusts of 71 miles per hour. So incredibly fast, incredibly dangerous winds.
And where did you say that was?
That was near the entrance of Tampa Bay.
Yep, okay. And that's where the water level rise was to Port Manatee, same area. Look at that gust at St. Pete. 70-mile-per-hour gust, 71-mile-per-hour gust at Clearwater. These will go higher, not much, but I certainly think we could get 80s in those locations, guys.
All right, thank you so much, Bobby. You've seen the pictures right there, the live images, as well as the numbers on that graphic that our weather team showed you. Either way it goes, it is overwhelming when you consider the storm surge that we've been warning folks about. Of course, we appreciate you sticking with us as we keep you informed, prepared, and connected. Thanks for joining us. Time now 7:02. I'm Frank Wiley.
And I'm Sarah Rosario. Special thank you to our team of meteorologists working so diligently to keep you informed as the storm moves through our area and those watches and warnings that come through as well. Speaking of everyone who's out on the field right now and then just keeping you informed on everything, we have our reporter David Shealy giving us the latest on what's happening in Pinellas County. He joins us now from Tarpon Springs. Hi, David.
Hey, Sarah and Frank, as we just heard from Bobby, the winds have been at high speeds, and that's exactly what we've got here in Tarpon Springs. We've been dealing with windy conditions throughout the day, but it has really picked up as of late. We're not too far from the Tarpon Springs High School. In that neighborhood, there were a couple of downed trees. The reason we're not over there is because we were very close to some power lines, and we wanted to err on the side of caution. So this is the safest area that we could come. You can see the effect the wind is having on the trees here. This is the Hampton Inn and Suites here in Tarpon Springs, just down the road again from Tarpon Springs High School. And right now, it's just wind. Rain is coming in as well, but just windy conditions. And thankfully, everybody that was outside has now gone inside and is trying to bunker down.
All right, thank you so much, David, and we want you to do the same thing. We'll get back with you momentarily. I want to go now to the city of Tampa with an update on the press conference. Let's go ahead and listen in. Mayor Jane Castor.
And Pinellas County as well. So please heed the warnings. As I have said many times, if you get in a confrontation with Mother Nature, she wins 100% of the time. So please stay safe out there. I'm going to have Commissioner Cohen come up and speak now.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I want to begin by saying that my presence here at the city is indicative of the fact that Hillsborough County is working very closely with our city partners and with our federal and state partners to make sure that we do everything that we can to keep our community safe through this storm. The county is continuing to monitor Hurricane Helene, which is a dangerous hurricane that will have major impacts along the west coast of Florida throughout the day and night. We are all taking it very seriously. The county remains under a state of local emergency with a mandatory evacuation for Zone A. But the time to evacuate has most likely come to an end as the weather continues to deteriorate. So now is a time to shelter in place and to recognize that we're expecting a storm surge of anywhere from 5 to 8 feet. We also want to ask our residents to make sure and stay indoors after the storm has passed to allow crews to get out and assess the situation. The county is going to have a news conference at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. You can expect the evac to be addressed at that time. There will have been hopefully sufficient time to do an assessment and determine which areas are safe to return to. My understanding is that the airport, which has been closed all day today, is going to do a similar assessment in the morning and attempt to get up and running again as soon as possible. I want to mention that Hillsborough County is going to be closed tomorrow, along with the city of Tampa, along with Hillsborough County Public Schools. Hillsborough County Solid Waste will continue to suspend collection operations through Friday, September 27th. Residents should not place any trash, recycling, or yard waste out for collection until after the storm's effects pass. Regular collection service is anticipated to resume on Saturday, September 28th, and residents who were missed due to the storm will receive collection service on their next regularly scheduled day. I want to particularly mention that our main information line for the storm is 833-HC-STORM. So don't call 911 with non-emergency questions. You can refer to the county and to the city in order to get more information. For the county, though, that number is 833-HC-STORMS. So we ask everyone, beseech everyone to stay safe, stay indoors, let the worst of it pass, and we will all get through this together. Thank you very much, Mayor, for all your leadership.
Thank you. Maribel?
Muy buenas noches, Maribel Garrett, Enlace Hispano para la ciudad de Tampa. En este momento estamos recibiendo el impacto mayor.
All right, so there we're just hearing from city officials in Tampa letting us know the latest is they're saying shelter in place. The time to evacuate has ended because emergency crews are no longer going to be able to go out and get you, as they're saying that that time is now passed.
Yeah, they don't want to put themselves at risk as they do the best they can. Even though they have a big crew, they can only do what they can do. And they use some strong language right there. In terms of the weather, they said deteriorate.
Yeah, they do expect the weather to deteriorate. They're saying stay safe, stay indoors. We're going to be getting through this together. Again, county officials now saying that evacuation order assessment is going to be taking place tomorrow after the storm passes. And they're going to be looking at things like debris. If your trash is supposed to come tomorrow, maybe saying, hey, where's my trash man? He's not coming tomorrow because everything's closed. And then they're going to say all that stuff is going to resume either on Monday. For some people, it'll resume on Saturday. We have updates like this coming out from several counties across the Bay Area. I know it's the same in Pinellas County, where officials there said shelter in place as well. As if you live in that Zone A area, a mandatory evacuation order is in place for you. Same with Manatee County as well, as we continue to see pictures from the storm and damage and that wind and rain intensifying.
Incredible images there. As we talk about numbers, we've been alluding to the power outages throughout the day. Of course, that number has increased dramatically. I have some new numbers here from you for you. Total customers out of power, 58,000 customers. That's being reported by TECO at this hour.
Wow. And in Pinellas County, I do want to give you an update. So now they're talking, we're looking at a press conference in Hillsborough County, but we're getting updates from all the counties as well. In Pinellas County, they were giving an update about the Water Reclamation Center. It could shut down because of storm surge. So again, storm surge is our biggest threat. Bobby's been telling us about that. With catastrophic storm surge expected for our area, they may have to shut off water for people who live near that Northeast Water Reclamation Facility. That means you won't be able to flush your toilet. You will not be able to shower. You will not be able to do laundry. This is for about 48 hours if the storm surge reaches 7 feet or over 7 feet. So heads up for my people who live in that Lealman area of Pinellas County, Kenneth City. Those are areas we're going to be looking at for that potential storm surge impact.
It gets gritty as we deal with these conditions. I want to go back to this news conference right here as they're addressing some of the questions. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Bad. This is what we've been talking about. Strong winds is coming. First responders are out there responding to calls, but first responders will not be able to assist you once the wind get a certain miles per hour. So with that being said, we encourage you all to please stay indoors. Do not go out and expose yourself, your family into this weather. As we talk about flooding, once again, do not drive your vehicles through the water. Do not drive bicycles. Do not go outside. It is getting dark. Some of you all have generators, and you need to make sure you follow the manufacturer's instructions whenever you operate those generators. It has to be in a well-ventilated area. Do not operate the generators inside your doors, inside your garage. Only plug in the necessary items that you need to plug in. With that being said, some of you all might not have generators. Please do not use candles, especially unattended candles, because that's going to cause additional dangers. We want everyone to stay safe. I talk about lithium-ion batteries. Salt water and lithium batteries do not mix. Once again, if you have any of those electronics, do not submerge that in water, please. Once again, we want everyone to stay safe, and please wait until authorities give you the clearance to be able to go back to your home. Hopefully some of you all are in shelters and shelter in place and shelter down. If you want to receive additional information, please text Tampa Ready to 888-777. 888-777. Please text Tampa Ready, and for Spanish, Tampa Lista, 888-777. Be safe. Now I introduce Chief Burkle.
Thank you, Chief Tripp. So the common theme here is now is the time to stay home. Do not go outside. Our first responders are out there. If you go outside, if you travel, or if you go near water, you're putting our first responders at risk. They are out there doing a great job keeping people safe, but we do not want to put them unnecessarily at risk. In addition to that, if you think you're going to go out and do any type of nefarious activity, our first responders will be out there and they will catch you. And if you're charged with a criminal offense relating to the storm, you will have enhanced penalties and you will stay in jail until you see a judge in the next morning. We can't do this alone. We need everybody in the community to report suspicious activity to us. If you see something, say something so we can do something, and let's all be safer together. Thank you.
All right, no questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you just heard that update from the mayor and other officials dealing with this situation. The warnings not only for the weather, the situations that you cannot control, but also what you can control. They said they will be watching, and they're alluding to looting, other behavior that one could be arrested for.
That's right. He said, you know, if you get caught doing some suspicious activity during storm time, he says your penalties are going to be enhanced if it's found to be related to the storm. So heads up to anybody. I'm not sure if the criminals are out here watching the news, but if you are, don't think about it.
Right, and those officials are watching the video that we've seen, so they see how folks are behaving out there in those conditions, don't want to put their crews in danger. Let's do this. Let's check in with Aaron Parsegian. He's on Crystal River for us right now. Aaron, what are you seeing and what are people telling you right about now?
Well, it started as a pretty calm afternoon, and over the past hour or so, we've really started to see that rain and wind begin to pick up. We're right here on Kings Bay, and one thing we're interested in watching right here is this phenomenon where the water levels in the bay actually over the past couple hours have gone down a little bit. We were last at that motel, if you can see off in the distance, that green patch of grass there. Some of that was starting to be covered in water that has since been gone back down, but that's going to change over the next several hours depending on the positioning of Helene as it moves its way more north and past the Crystal River area. We are expecting what could be life-threatening storm surge in this area. Right now, people are really paying attention to those levels. We are as well watching the seawall here, where we were told as soon as this water comes up over the seawall, we have about 15 minutes to find higher ground, because we've seen how fast this water can move in this area that's been battered by storms in the past. Hurricane Idalia just over a year ago brought about 7 feet of storm surge to this area, going into homes, causing a lot of damage to businesses as well. That was with 7 feet of storm surge. We're still projecting around 10 to 15 in this area later tonight. So that's going to cause a lot of these areas, basically the western part of Citrus County, west of US 19, among many of these homes around Kings Bay, many of these restaurants and other businesses here, put them in danger of this storm surge. So that's what people are watching closely. And as this rain and wind has picked up over the past hour, we sought to see this area start to calm down a little bit. There were some folks around here drinking, swimming, doing that kind of thing. As this weather picked up, they started to make their way out of here and find higher ground. So they're heeding those evacuation warnings, which is important because we know, the damages and the life-threatening possibilities that could come when you're talking about levels of storm surge that high. The mayor here even saying this could be historic flooding in this area, and that's why they're kind of playing the waiting game to see exactly what's going to happen later into the night.
All right, historic meeting. We've never seen it on record before there, Aaron, and typically we do this in the newsroom. We get the nuts and bolts, meaning we get the straight facts, right? But the emotion of the situation, you frequent some of these areas, Aaron, to actually see that storm surge up close and personal, what do you make of that?
Well, it's kind of bizarre, right? Because you talk to some of these folks. I met someone who evacuated their home here on Kings Bay, a home that they were still living on the second floor of more than a year after Hurricane Idalia brought about 2 feet of water in there, damaging their floors, their walls, a lot of their some utilities as well. So they've been still living on the second floor of their condo. Now they're in a hotel waiting out this storm, wondering what they're going to come back to. This is a resilient area, though. A lot of the people we've talked to, the business owners, they were going around yesterday helping people board up, helping them do things to their windows, make them more secure. And they said they're going to be here to help clean up as well. It's, something that they're unfortunately used to. But as we said, this is storm surge that could be something they haven't seen before, at least in several decades.
Thank you, Aaron. We're seeing that wind pick up through the area, him adjusting his hat, the camera moving as well. So we're hoping you stay safe out there, Aaron. We're going to take a live look right now down south in Naples, where they're feeling the effects of the storm as well.
Right, let's take a look at this right here. It's courtesy of EarthCam. So we talk about that wind, right? I took notes over here, Sarah, as I was trying to, get an idea of the wind speeds of this hurricane, Hurricane Helene. And so, you put the bottom side of the storm category and the top side, Cat 1, 74 to 95. My notes only went up to 3. Thankful for our weather team, though, Michaela Lucero, just alerting me that when we talk about a Category 4 storm, we're talking about at least 130 mile per hour winds. And this is that right there.
Yeah. You can see that there, how the water is just picking up there through that area. We're seeing similar scenes even in our own area near the pier. Clearwater Police putting out some tweets and some things on social media saying they had some wayward boats that were just found banging into the pier there. So if you've lost your boat or if you have a boat, maybe be mindful if it's by Clearwater and the pier. Clearwater Police is putting out pictures of it. Maybe you can go check out their social media pages and ours as well. And you can see what those boats look like. We're going to be taking a live look outside at Clearwater as well. Here's a look at that. Bobby, were you going to say something about Clearwater?
Just getting ready to tell you about that camera right there. You can see that it's out in the parking lot now. It's come well over that seawall there. I mean, it's sticking out a little bit, but now blowing into the parking lot. That'll get it back out towards the circle. In fact, let me turn it here just a little bit to the east. We can see the circle there out at the beach. And it looks like it's just a little bit of water there. It's not terrible at that point, but we still got more water to go.
Yeah. Bobby, at this point, it's all relative, of course, right? Because as we said, this storm, such a big storm, going to touch everybody in some way.
Definitely. Good thing I do see there is that people are not out there. Earlier today, we saw that people were out there, and thankfully, looks like some people are heeding those warnings.
Yeah, I want to take you back to Tampa here for a look near the convention center of the situation right there. We've had Eric Glasser stationed there for much of the day. Let's check in with him. Eric.
Yeah, we're actually at the very southern end of Davis Islands, what's called the Seaplain Basin. And actually the entire area of Davis Islands is in flood zone A, so that's a mandatory evacuation zone. And as the wind continues to pick up, you can see why there is concern here. Look at the water there, churned up and hitting the seawall, and now starting to come over onto land. I can tell you that during Hurricane Idalia, there was water here on Davis Islands. We're talking about another 2 to 3 feet of storm surge above that, potentially. And so obviously some of the boats here are very concerned. Look out into the basin, you can see it's also used for mooring boats and other seed craft. And then if you look further into the distance, you'll see, well, that's the Davis Islands Yacht Club. And at the very end of their dock there, something you obviously don't see very often, boats are hurt in warning flags. Flying there and obviously being pretty well by the elements as we speak. Where we're standing right now at the edge of the basin, by the way, is also where Peter O'Knight Airport is. The airfield has been secured, but if you take a look towards downtown, which is where the runway is, you can see that there are still a couple of planes out here as well. Those have been tied down. They are currently able to handle the elements and the amount of wind that we see, but if the water does come up and over, well, that could be a very different story, as it could push those around as well. Again, though, the biggest concern right now is the storm surge. The elements, as you can see, are not really very well. Water already now pouring onto the streets just around Davis Island Boulevard as it makes its way here to the end. I can tell you on other parts of the island, some spots have been boarded up in the commercial district. Houses have plenty of sandbags around them. They know that there is the potential for flooding, and they're doing what they can. But it's just a question at this point of how much storm surge there will be and whether or not it will inundate this low-lying area. On Davis Islands, Eric Glasser, 10 Tampa Bay.
Big thanks to Eric Glasser for that report right there. And just as that was coming on board, much like yourselves at home, we have our phones here. We're getting these alerts.
Yeah, we're just getting some information about a warning that people need to be aware of.
Yeah, down in Manatee County. Bobby Deskins, what's the word?
Tornado warning. We got another tornado warning down in, well, right now Charlotte County, but it's for parts of Sarasota, Manatee County, DeSoto County. It's this one way southeast of Port Charlotte. That's the cell, a very weak cell, but this one, not this one, but these cells have produced tornadoes and damage earlier today. So we got to take all of these very seriously. You can see this is right now in the Port Charlotte area. It's mainly just east of downtown. It's basically going across 75 right now, east of Murdoch, north of Solana, up north of Cleveland there. But this is going to move it out into southwestern parts of DeSoto County near Platte as we get going into the next 5 to 10 minutes or so. This is not a very clear one. Here it is right here. If I put a track on it, it's going to put it over towards Maple Leaf Golf Country Club by about 7:21. That is now. Platte would be about 7:28. So about 7 minutes before it can get up. It's crossing 75 right now. So it'll be over in that rural area here in just about a minute or so, and then up towards that Platte area by about 7:28. Pine Level, if it can hold together, that would be another 20 minutes or so before it gets to you. Most of these recent ones have flared up and then fallen apart pretty quickly. And that is more typical of a tornado that we see in hurricanes. But it's a decent rotation. We've seen more earlier. It gives me an idea that they may not keep this going the whole time. There, we just got another one in right there. We're actually talking, I'm kind of looking at the bigger picture, but we're talking about this right here. So if you're in the Platte area, you want to get into your shelter. There are some pretty good winds out ahead of it. This is west of Platte. There's some pretty good straight line winds right there, but the tornadic cell is this one right here. And you can see that polygon is going to take it all the way up. They've been drawing them. Look at that. They drew it all the way up until 7:45. I doubt that this is around for 20 minutes, but it might. It could be. You can see it's way down here on the bottom. Just getting a new scan right there. This is it on the other side, east side of 75 now, north and east, depending on how you look at it. And now that's into DeSoto County. So Platte, you need to be in your shelter right now. It's a weak one, but it doesn't mean anything, right? A tornado is a tornado. This is it right here. In fact, I think it's actually sitting right in this area. We're going to get an update here in just a second. It should be across 75. We haven't seen a lot in the rest of that band, right? That band extends almost due north now, up across Polk County. You can see the bands there. They've weakened just a little bit. In the meantime, we've seen heavy rainfall move in along the Pinellas County coast, parts of northwest Hillsborough, getting a little bit heavy towards West Chase. But look at that, Tarpon Springs, Newport Richey, Trinity getting some real heavy rainfall. And there's more upstream coming in off of the Gulf for Pinellas County. Not a lot of rotation in that, thank goodness. Those really populated areas. And it's coming in pretty good. But I just think now we're going to transition to this area for some minor flooding in the street. So look, some people are getting storm surge flooding in Pinellas County. Others that aren't on the immediate water with that type of flooding, now you're looking at the chance of seeing the regular spots that flood when you get heavy rain. They will start to do that. And that will go for western Hillsborough, western Pasco County, and of course the beaches of Manatee County as well. Holmes Beach, Longboat Key, and up into AMI. Our tornado warning way down here, southwest of Arcadia. It's really this little area right in here. See if we got another scan here. We should get one. Just a minute. It's over on the east side of 75, so that's good news. A lot of the population here is on the west side. You can see all these streets here in the Northport area. So I think it's actually somewhere right in here. We're just getting the scan in. And the movement's generally been around 60 miles per hour. They've been moving very, very quickly, and that's not going to change too much. The threat for tornadoes will actually come down just a little bit as we get going into the next couple of hours. You can see they're keeping the tornado watch for this area where we have our tornado now. Highlands County's in it. South of there, they do not have the tornado watch anymore, and it does include the whole rest of our viewing area. So everybody's still going to have to be watching for that. That will get trimmed from the north back to the south. The bigger picture as far as the radar goes right now, The center is now a little west-northwest of Tampa. So we've got those onshore winds. It still looks very powerful. The tornado warning is in the southeast quadrant again. Same quadrant, which we expect to see them a little bit here, but not as much as the northeast quadrant, which we're not getting them. And also a weaker than what we've been seeing earlier in the day. And that's very good news. So Arcadia, I think you're okay for this one. Platte, you're still in your safe space. Northport, you're safe. Port Charlotte, you're safe. Everything's looking good as far as that's concerned. But we will be looking at this moving quickly off towards the north and moving west of 17. So 72 would be the next one up there. If you live along 17 up through Nocatee, up through Arcadia, that will be, you'll be in the, you're all right, you're good. You're not going to have that coming in your direction here. So drifting northward now, I shouldn't say drifting, racing northward at 60 miles per hour. We got another scan in, still a little bit of rotation here. As far as velocity goes, that looks good. As far as looking for any debris, potentially something in here. Cape Coral is the one where I did see some damage earlier today from a tornado. And it seems like these have been the ones that have been coming in as waterspouts right off the water and initially causing the damage and then gradually weakening as they move to the north. So I don't see a whole lot of damage right there. The structure itself is still there. Hail has been a little, we've had a few spots of it, but not much. And you typically don't get a lot of hail in hurricanes. It is warm from the ground all the way up. I mean, obviously a little bit colder up there, but hail is not a major issue with these particular cells. It's just the fact that we got, there we go, finally, that we got an update here. So here we go. There is our warned cell. Platte, still in your safe spot. Here's another little cell north of that crossing 72. No warning on that one, though. These, to me, are starting to look more like straight line wind events. This one here and this one here, which is not warned, that top one. So definitely still keep that going in. And then what the warning, well, while I got you, let me just go ahead and draw it because this is the Platte one. Put it up towards Pine Level. That would get into the Pine Level area right around 7:38, 7:40 time frame. So about 10 minutes from now in Pine Level. Platte, you're still in your safe spot. All right. Northport, you're in the clear. Port Charlotte, you're in the clear. Nocatee, you're in the clear. Even though you have a little bit of that rain coming through the area right now, it's not that bad. In fact, Arcadia is getting a really good heavy downpour, even a thunderstorm there. This is the cell that we're watching. All right, Arcadia, that was just a heavy downpour. This one is the other one, but again, I think that's more straight line winds, and I'm literally looking at the one that is warned, and that one doesn't look as impressive to me right now. So, very rural area, by the way, out here, headed mainly west of Arcadia, and chat is not showing too much right now. I don't think they'll basically end this one. They'll probably let it expire, but they're not going to just cut it off. So we have to be watching it. Meanwhile, you know, look, I mean, we're seeing high waters across the area, 5 feet mean high level. So basically, it's about 4.5 foot mean high level water. And this is at Bowleys Creek. That's in Manatee County. So yeah, some high water coming through, and part of it is some of these cells that we're seeing here, right? These are the outer bands where that wind is changing a little bit, and that's what's caused us to even get these tornado warnings that we're seeing. Platte's still in the area, so still not safe to come out in Platte. Everybody else is okay. You can see that we're really starting to see less and less rain now, so these bands will become a little less numerous. However, I don't think they get much less than this. It's going to take a while. It's going to take really until the early morning hours of tomorrow morning, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, before these kind of thin out a little bit more. So we're going to keep that chance at least for some tornadoes. I mean, look at this line extending all the way down past Marco Island, right? That I think is just going to continue as this storm continues to move off to the north-northeast. Moving about right now at about 23 miles per hour, I think was the latest that they had it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the latest numbers from the Hurricane Center on the storm. What are we looking at? Category 4, 130 mile per hour winds. It's going to be very close to that at landfall in the Big Bend area. Moving to the north-northeast at 23, and pressure's down again, 945 millibars. That's about 110 miles west of Tampa at this particular point. So the reason I want to show you the bigger picture here is because once we get that center to our north, we slowly start to get these tornadoes out of here, these tornado chances at least. But you can see we still got some rain to come back in there. All right, let's get back down into our warning. Very southern part of DeSoto County right now, south of Arcadia. In fact, Platte, just about in the clear. Let's look at this here. Yep, that's still a good rotation though. Right there. So Platte, let's hold on. Let's stay in our shelter right now. Although really it's just about out of there. And if you live up along 72 and in between there and Pine Level, you need to keep an eye on this. I don't think Arcadia is going to have to deal much with this one, but Pine Level, it's going to be very, very close. In fact, just keep your ears peeled for what's going on right to your southwest, because this little area right here, sorry about that, it's showing a little bit of rotation, nothing much, but I definitely think it's just some good winds coming through with that particular one. So let's go ahead and do another track on this Pine Level. That'll be there about 7:39. We've got about 8 minutes for you. And then at the same time that it goes by there, to kind of give you the chance that you'll see it in Arcadia, which is right there with 17. It kind of went away. It's covered up. Platte, I think you're in the all clear right now. All right? You're looking good. This is north of you now. It is clearing out. This is our area of concern, and still a little bit of rotation right there, as you can see. As far as debris, it looks like there's a little something here. See all that light orange there? That looks like we could actually had picked up a little bit of debris all along that path. So yeah, let's treat this like it's legit there, guys. Tornado warning. The tornado warning is in effect until what is it, 7:45? Is that what it is? Yeah, 7:45. But they've got it going all the way up, almost to Wauchula by that time, and it's getting there now. I mean, you can see the beginning of the polygons down here, but the storm is right here. So we could get it there in about 15 minutes, get it up to almost to Wauchula in just about 15 minutes.
And Bobby, when you're telling people to shelter in place in terms of a tornado, you know, for folks who may not have lived here for some time, what exactly does that look like?
So basically, first floor, right? Welcome to Florida. We don't have basements. So you want to be on the bottom floor. You don't want to be on those top floors. You don't want to be out on the lanai. You don't want to be anywhere where you've got some kind of elevation. You want to be inside. And when you do go inside, you want to put as many walls basically between you and the outside world. And back in the day, we'd always say, go to the bathroom, because the bathroom has all, the metal pipes and stuff like that. They still have pipes. They're just plastic PVC most of the time now. So it's not quite the protection of steel pipes used to be. But iron pipes, but definitely it's still a great place to be because it's a small confined area, and generally you don't have too many windows on the bathroom, so that's a good place to be. And what you want to do really is you turn up your radio or your TV, excuse me, before you get in there, because that way you can hear us telling you when the all clear is, right? We always tell, especially if you got kids, you want to bring games in there, that type of stuff, give them to do, kind of distract them. Because look, these are legit, and so many people that we talk to when we're on TV that are hearing our voice, and the odds of it hitting that one house that's listening, compared to everybody else, is so small, but that's what it does.
Right.
That's exactly what it does. And talk to the people that had damage from earlier today. And unfortunately, I've not heard of any injuries at this point. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but I haven't heard of it.
Right. And with a tornado, Bobby, as you know, covering this type of stuff, right? So a tornado can take out multiple homes and not touch other homes right next door.
That's the skipping part, right? That's exactly right. Like, oh, we didn't have any problems. We do have a camera, and this is looking north. There we are. That's 75 north. And looking at crossing the river down there, right there is what it looks like to me. And yeah, you're not going to see anything. In fact, look at that. I mean, it's not even raining in that particular picture. Certainly having few and farther, the showers are few and farther between than what we had earlier. But I think what we kind of have right now is pretty much what we'll be seeing for the next several hours or so, kind of waves of rain.
Sure.
And unfortunately, where these are tracking, we could actually end up seeing them track over the same area and start really adding the rain up a little bit. So far, rainfall totals have been highest along the immediate coast, is what we expected, right? Especially when you get up closer to the center.
Right. And Bobby, Sarah and I were talking about this in terms of this storm. you know, some of these hurricanes, they go over an area and they just sit. And, you know, that makes it all the more miserable. With this particular storm, is this, in terms of comparison to other storms that you've covered, is this something that is quickly moving? We know it rapidly intensified, but is the storm
23 miles
quickly?
per hour? Yeah, that movement, that lowers the amount of time that it's going to be in our neck of the woods, right? That's the beauty of that part, because you don't, even for inland locations, you know, anywhere that thing is going to move over. So we're just getting brushed here with this. The problem is that it's bringing a lot of wind on the backside, but it will limit the amount of time that we deal with that wind. But unfortunately, it's a larger storm, so it's almost a trade-off. Like, we're happy it's moving that fast, but at the same time, it's still not moving fast enough because it's such a big storm. And then when it gets up into the Panhandle area, those folks, I mean, this thing is going to move so fast inland, it's not going to have time to fall apart right away. So instead of it just weakening quickly as it moves on shore, it's going to weaken 100 miles inland. And those folks that don't get those kind of winds are going to start getting those winds up in the Panhandle in South Georgia.
Looking at the placement of where the storm is, it looks like it's latitude to where we are. Are we seeing the worst or the peak of it now, or do we expect more impacts throughout the rest of this evening?
It's to our northwest now, or west-northwest, so it's north of us now. We would expect that our tornado chances would go down, right? We would expect, these are tornado warnings in South Georgia. That's where we expect to see them, right? And I think it will get transferred further to the north. But we end up, I'm just telling you, it's just a thing that we end up seeing these this year. Look at the tornado watches all the way up into South Carolina.
And that's the polygons that you're pointing out.
Those are the polygons, those red polygons. Those are tornado watches. The brighter ones, the small ones, those are the warnings. Here's our warning that we have here. We still have a tornado watch that extends down to Miami. And it's essentially just covering for this little band here that's part of our warning. We get a little bit closer. And then that band that's off of the east coast of Florida, east of West Palm Beach there. Because those could produce tornadoes.
And Bobby, you're giving us the micro view, quite literally, right? So as you pull out, and we're talking about these warnings and the expiration time, I know in a few moments some of these tornado warnings are going to expire, but the bigger picture for that bigger storm that's spawning these tornadoes, do we have any idea of a time that might arrive and possibly pass folks?
I'm sorry, Pat.
So in terms of the window of time for that storm to,
for who?
For folks in our viewing area right there.
Yeah. So the rain, right? This heavy rain part it's on right now. It's on, right? Next 3 hours, at least.
Next 3.
But really, probably that prime for those 3 hours. Also at that time is the surge. So we're at 7:38 right now, 10:38, 11:38. So 3 to 4 hours of the surge. And the high winds, too. We've been seeing gusts in the 70s now. And I think those are going to go up. They're probably going to go up to the 80 mile per hour range, somewhere in there. This is prime time right now for just about everything. And that includes the areas that are inland that haven't seen as much. But if you notice, now out in the Polk County, we've seen more rain out there. And so that will continue. And unfortunately, what I'm kind of concerned about is this area right in here could get quite a bit of rainfall, because the angle that this is coming is just going to keep going over the same areas.
Bobby, I did want to mention that they trimmed back that tornado warning, so now it's just in effect for DeSoto and Hardee County.
Okay.
And that goes until 7:45.
We kept it to 7:45.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Colleen. Yeah, that's it right there. It just crossed into the Pine Level area, right there on 70, west of Lansing. Lansing's east of it. Lansing's okay, but you can see it there, and we still have a little bit of a couplet left over. It does not look as impressive. I get a feeling they're going to let this thing expire in the next 5 minutes. That's the area that we're watching. But Pine Level, you should still be in your safe spot. Give it another 5 minutes, and it will be out of there. It's not even going to be that long, but 5 minutes would do real good, because I want to get this thing across 70. I think it's right here. I think it's right in there, just south of town, so you need to be in your safe spot. Kinsey, I would watch this too. You know, I would get in there. It's crossing through the Pine Level area right now. It's right over Highway 70. It's going to be close enough to you that we need to keep a very close eye on it. And it looks, we potentially could have had some debris there, right there before it got to Pine Level. So, respect this storm here. This could certainly be skipping a tornado down there and picking some things up just a little bit. It has looked like it's weakened a little bit to me, not a whole lot. There's a pretty still good little couplet there. However, it doesn't look as strong as it used to be. And then looking downstream, upstream, a couple little spots here. They're a little high up in the atmosphere right now, so we'll have to see this again. Here is our warning area. And then you look a little bit further to the north, and we're not seeing quite as bit of it. So that is a good sign. That's a good sign that it's out there. All right, Pine Levels, Kinsey, in your safe spot still. Arcadia, you are in the clear. Nocatee, you are always in the clear. You're fine right now. As far as the radar goes, you can see a lot of spots out there that aren't even seeing any rain right now. It's this one cell clearly that we have, and you can see a little inflow notch there too. So it looks like it's still trying to do what it's doing. When we look at that inflow notch, that type of thing, that gives us an idea of the structure of the storm. So if we think it's weakening, that's part of the structure will weaken, and that will break down a little bit. And so then that would give us a better idea to kind of let this go. It's still got a little bit there. We've got another 3 minutes on the warning. I'll go ahead and put a cone on it for you here. This will take it, and I don't think it gets there, but this will take it up towards Bridges right around 7:53. I think that's a little far for this particular one. I do think Lily Church, obviously, 7:49. The warning goes into 7:45. Lily Church just had a good cell go by, and that had some gusty winds in it. And this one's going to be similar, but we still have a better rotation in this Warren cell near Pine Level, just north of it. And so Lily Church, you should be in your safe space now. Pine Level, basically, if you live right along Highway 70 there in Pine Level, you're in the clear. All right, Kinsey, you need to be in your safe spot. Look, we just got this. That's a good still rotation right there. Kinsey in your safe spot. Bridges, I would too. It's about 10 minutes out from the Bridges area. Our warning, we'll see if they want to let this go. Our warning goes, well, yes, they did. They at least extended it further to the north. Just about there. There we go. Okay, they've trimmed it back on the south end. But they have it till 7:45, and they do include those areas of Lily and up towards Bridges and Vindola as well. So that's our warning now. They've been a little weaker over the last couple of hours that we've had these tornadoes, or at least I should say over the last couple of hours they've become a little bit weaker. At least they look less organized. Let's put it that way. It's still a tornado, but it looks less organized, and that's a good sign. This one, jinxed it. That is a better look right there. Definitely, Kinsey, you need to be in your shelter. Lily as well. Debris, I think that's what we're seeing right there. This is likely picking up some debris right now. This is likely touching ground. At least it's skipping along the ground. So Kinsey on 661 out there by 641. That's going to cross right over that area in just about a minute or two. Right? Really, that's not going to take long at all. So give it about 2 minutes for that to continue to drift to the north. Bridges, you're up next. You want to be in your safe spot. Pine Level, you're good. You're in the clear, although we've got to check and see if the newsroom can see if there's any damage reports out there in Pine Level. 911 calls, that type of stuff, because it looks like that did pick some debris. Still a good structure here. You can see this little hook. We'll call it hook echo. That still looks like, and that has not changed much. In fact, let me back this up. You can kind of see it staying there the whole time.
And now it's 7:45 there, Bobby, so some of this has expired.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, it looks like that latest scan, it kind of fell apart.
I mean, they've dropped it. I'm telling you. So technically, let me show you this.
Still have a couple of them.
Ran out of time, but if you're in Kinsey and you're in Bridges, just give it 15 minutes in your shelter.
Right.
Because of that right there. That's one of the best couplets we've seen in a while. In fact, look where it was warned here. That's much weaker. But it might be collapsing just a little bit here. So just respect it. I think it's going to be falling apart a little bit here, but no more warnings right now. Kinsey and Bridges, shelter until, let's go till 7:55. All right, give yourself 10 minutes in Kinsey. Let's go to 8 o'clock in the Bridges area. We'll keep an eye on it. If it flares back up, if they go ahead and decide to issue another one on it, of course, we'll let you know right away. But you've got the heads up right now. Back to you. One more look at this storm spinning by. We're starting to see a little bit more lightning around there. Let me make this just a little bit bigger. It's kind of hard to see there. See that lightning around the eye wall there, that north and east side. So it's still got really good structure there. It should maintain about 125 to 130 mile per hour winds before landfall. And landfall looks like it's going to be somewhere up in this area. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks so much
Thank
for that,
you,
Bobby.
Bobby.
The breakdown of that. These tornadoes just pop up quickly.
And super scary for people who live in that. Kinsey, if you live in Hardy County in that area, DeSoto, southern Manatee County, you probably were worried about that. So thank you, Bobby, for walking us through that and guiding us as we were sheltering in place.
Every bit of it, yeah.
They reissued it. They
Oh.
reissued it.
We were going to get to Chris Hurst, but Bobby Deskin's telling us. Okay, so there was another warning as we right on
Yeah,
cue
they're
said
issuing
these just
another
popped up
warning
quickly.
It's the same thing. They just service a little bit on the busy side today.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Very busy
a
night.
little bit on the busy side.
Much like yourself.
Yeah, but that's all right. We got you covered there. Now, having said that, we basically have a little try and plan ahead. I try to lead these storms when I do draw them, just so you get a little bit of extra time and don't have to last second jump in there.
And Bobby, you mentioned straight line winds too versus a low grade tornado. All parts of this storm, but when we're talking about straight line winds, what are folks dealing with?
So straight line winds can be damaging just as much. Straight line winds come in pushing straight down. It's usually when the storm is falling apart, you tend to get a lot of those, and they can be very, very damaging. And they can actually be long. You can have almost a block wide at least in some locations of that. Tornadoes can be very, very big, but typically the tornado will cover 3 houses or so and then kind of skip some. Straight line winds are usually when the storm is starting to fall apart a little bit. Sometimes there are days when we expect more straight line winds out of thunderstorms. Today is a day where we expect to see tornadoes, weaker tornadoes, but then as those storms collapse, we tend to see them turn into more straight line winds there.
All right, so we have Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins giving us the latest on the tornado warning, several of them coming in within the last 30 minutes here on 10 Tampa Bay. We've been keeping you informed and connected with what you need to know, letting you know you need to shelter in place and letting you know which areas are impacted for areas of Hardee, DeSoto, portions of Manatee and Sarasota counties right now. We also want to show you some video right now, also just coming into our newsroom, of some damage reports we're getting.
Right. Yeah, we want to pull this up right here. Down street light, I'm told that this is at Park Boulevard and Oakhurst. All right, so you see the crews right there doing what they can. Now, the view is a little blurry, obviously, because of the rain that we're dealing with, but again, a downed street light. And this is what we were talking about hours ago when it was, blue skies, sunshine, and just a little bit of wind, and it didn't seem like any problems were on the horizon. Well, this is what we were alluding to. This is what our weather team was warning folks about, because it doesn't take much, and that steady flow of wind, this is what happens.
And we're seeing more of this throughout portions of our area as well. So this is in Seminole in Pinellas County. You can see the street light there just waving in the wind there. Thankfully, no cars on the roadway. The slick road conditions along the roadway. We're also getting other reports of damage in other portions of our area. Also in Seminole County, Coffee Pot Boulevard, there's a water lapping up to a wall there, a seawall there. So we've seen that as well. We've seen boats come off of their anchors and also just smash into portions of the pier. Clearwater Police putting that information out. So as this storm continues to pass our area, we're seeing the impacts locally, damage, downed trees. I know in Rubonia and Manatee County, they're getting reports of some downed trees there as well.
Yeah, it's kind of an up and down with folks getting back into their shelter in place form with these tornado warnings. But you see that sign right there flapping in the wind. And we're talking about these high level winds too. So, emergency officials telling people at home, stay inside, because you step outside, imagine something like that flying in your direction.
Exactly. And within the last hour, we're getting just confirmation of shelter in place orders, those in place for Manatee County, Pinellas County, Citrus County, Hillsborough County officials, Mayor Jane Castor and County Commissioner Cohen, telling people, along with the fire officials, they're telling people you need to shelter in place because it's too late to be trying to evacuate right now.
A bit of a silver lining, if ever there were one. You saw that image. I don't know if we still have it right there, but we did not see anybody out there on the roads. Rosario.
And speaking of the roads, we've got a lot of road closures in place for you as well. We've got portions of the Howard Franklin Bridge closed as well. Courtney Campbell Causeway, all of our Bay Area bridges are closed right now. We also have crews out in the field who are giving us updates.
Yes, we do. One of those crews, Eric Glasser, has been manning this for us in Tampa. Eric, quite a different scene, right? So darkness behind you, and that wasn't the case earlier as people weren't necessarily heeding the warnings. What are you seeing? What are people telling you right now? Because it sounds like you've got some company out there.
Yeah, there still is, Frank. There are still people out and about here, even in the darkness. Folks have been walking around. In fact, the police and the fire department are some of those voices that you're hearing. They're walking around checking some of the alarms that are going off. We're at the Tampa Convention Center right now. We've given ourselves this vantage point, if you will. Oh, there goes our light. You can tell how windy it is. We're giving ourselves this vantage point because it's covered, but you can definitely see the elements from where we are. In fact, I'm going to ask that we take a look outside, and you can look across the water and you can see just how high it is from where we are. Even in the darkness, you can see that the bay is now up to the edge of the seawall. Across from us is Tampa General Hospital, where that aqua wall is, and that wall is doing its job at the moment. The water is very close to coming up and over the seawall. To the right of that, if you look at the bridge leading onto Davis Islands, there is a high water vehicle that is making its way there. Davis Islands, I can tell you where we were just in the last couple of hours, is definitely taking on water at this point. And to the right of the bridge along Bayshore Boulevard, you can see that the water is up and over the seawall and the balustrade. There are police vehicles at every street leading over to Bayshore Boulevard, which has at least a couple of feet of water on it now, stretching from where we are downtown all the way south into South Tampa. And just to the right of that area, you can see where the gas bar, the Gasparilla ship, would normally be docked. That area is completely submerged now, also being overtaken by the water. I'm going to move across now, back to the left side from where we're standing. Again, in the darkness, plenty of wind and rain pushing water up into the bay. Look across and you can see where Harbor Island is. That's Jackson's. You might know that restaurant. It's just over the bridge from the convention center. And the water is now clearly up and over the dock at Jackson's. So that area now in danger of also becoming inundated with water. We have talked about the potential for surge. We were fortunate, I would say, in the earlier part of the day that the tide had gone out at the time that the surge was moving in, but that is now not the trend. The tide has been coming back in. The surge has been pushing up into the bay, and the combination of that shows that the storm surge, which we had talked about earlier in the day, is definitely starting to accumulate. From our vantage point here in downtown Tampa, again, you can see the water starting to push up on both sides of the seawall from where we are. We're on the side where the convention center is. The water is lapping up against where we are. And again, across the way at Jackson's, it is actually now inundating their dock area. Across the way, over at TGH, where that aqua wall has been built, you can see that the water is now at the very top of the seawall. And parts of Davis Islands, where TGH sits, are now starting to go underwater. I can tell you that that aqua wall, again, we said it does its job. That is sitting in front of some of the most sensitive equipment that they have at TGH, the generators, some of the electrical equipment that simply cannot go out. They talk to us about the risk of trying to move patients from TGH, and it's actually greater than leaving them there, but ensuring that they are able to self-sustain for a number of days. Again, moving to the right of that, where the Davis Island Bridge is, and downtown, you can see that is the, I believe, the 345 building along Bayshore Boulevard. Important, I'm pointing that out right now only because I'm letting you know that they still have lights. Power is still on at that building, as we can see in much of the area around downtown. But in the last half an hour, I've seen a couple of those blue flashes that we see sometimes when it gets dark. And those are transformers that are now starting to blow in this heavy wind. And so I assume that in parts of South Tampa, there are going to be areas now where we're going to start seeing reports of power outages as a result of that. Again, the wind is continuing to pick up. Oh, we just had one. I don't know if you were able to see it as we were moving around. We just had another transformer blow, lighting up the sky in that blue hue. So again, I'm expecting that there are going to be a lot of people in the South Tampa area. That's the direction from where we can see. They're going to start losing power now. As the wind picks up, it puts strain on the system. The limbs come down, it pulls down at the wires. The transformers start to go. It is typical for what we see as winds start to ramp up. We will continue to monitor the situation in the Tampa area and around Hillsborough. I'm also in touch with the Emergency Operations Center. If anything breaks, if anything is happening in the area that they need to let us know, we will certainly relay it to you as quickly as possible. Live in downtown Tampa, Eric Lasser, 10 Tampa Bay.
All right, Eric Glasser, thank you so much, live in downtown Tampa, and we are really seeing these things pick up. We're seeing the wind, obviously those power outages, so many people without power. I was just checking in with my family to see, hey, do you guys have it in Tampa?
It's very hit and miss. It's kind of haunting when you hear those sirens out there as well during Eric's live shot there. But obviously the surge is the big concern right now. We're keeping an eye on that. It's going to get It's going to get worse here, so we're keeping an eye in as many areas as we can. Well, I'll toss it over to Michaela. She's keeping an eye on the track of this storm. We've had a number of tornado warnings as well in our area, Michaela.
Yeah, that's right. We're continuing to track the radar. Right now, what we're seeing is that most of our tornado warnings for the area have expired. We did have 3 separate tornado warnings, but since then we have seen those again expire. Still seeing heavy rainfall, very strong winds, but all those areas just towards the south of Tampa have seen those warnings expire. They were in effect until about 8:15. So again, we're going to continue to monitor all of these areas. I'll give you a zoomed in look at some of the spots that I was really worried about. Some of these areas like Bridges, Lily, that's where we had that tornado warning just minutes ago. Oak Grove. Now, since that warning has expired, winds are still strong. Winds are still gusty. You can move out of that tornado safe spot, but wouldn't go too far. We have seen multiple rounds of tornadoes over similar areas over the last several hours. So a big picture look at the Tampa area. You can see heavy rainfall for the I-75 corridor, 275 as well, getting some of that heavier rain. Most of us, of course, not out on the roadways, and for good reason. We're seeing that rainfall, and not only will that rain, but the wind will be causing significant issues. Now, this is a part of the bigger system, Hurricane Helene. It is a Category 4 hurricane that we have been monitoring, and you can see it is getting closer and closer to the coast, and we are expecting it to make landfall over the next couple of hours. I do want to show you this tornado watch. This has updated in the last about 20 minutes. We have gotten an update from the National Weather Service. We do not have this tornado watch in effect until 6 a.m. Friday. It was supposed to expire tonight. However, they have extended that, which tells us that overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning, we all need to be prepared for tornadic activity. If you are anywhere in these yellow boxes, okay, you need to be prepared for some tornadic activity. Now, what this tells us is that you have to have a way to get weather information overnight that's loud enough to wake you up. So if you have alerts on your phone, make sure that the sound is on and that the volume is turned up loud enough that it will wake you up in case there is a tornado warning in your area, so that you can get to your tornado safe spot and keep yourself and your family safe. What does that tornado safe spot look like? We don't really have basements here in Florida, so what you want to do is get to the most windowless interior room on the lowest level of your home possible. The worst place to be is outside. If we get any tornado warnings overnight tonight in the dark, you will not be able to see them. When it's dark and this rainy, you can't see them. You can't get pictures or videos of them, so don't even try. Get to your tornado safe spot and stay there until we give you the all clear. Again, windowless interior room on the lowest level of your home. Now, I do want to mention this for the kiddos. If you've got kids who have been a little bit on the scared side for today, I know this has been really busy out there. So here's a couple things for the kids, and if the kids are around, this is just for you, okay? I'm Michaela, and I've got a job for you for the next couple of hours. I know it's a little scary sometimes when we hear the big old thunder and we see those flashes of lightning. So here's a few things I need from you. We are going through a lot of different camera shots, okay? You've been seeing Bobby. He's showing you all these different cameras. I want you to keep a count of how many different spots that we see for tonight, and then you can send an email to Bobby and tell him how many that you saw. And then I also need you to keep a count of the time between when you hear thunder and you see the lightning. So you'll see the flash of lightning, and then I want you to count how many seconds it is between the lightning flash and the sound of the thunder, okay? Keep a count and let us know how long it is. That gives us a better idea of where the lightning and the thunder is and where those storms are. So if you're at home, kiddos, I need you to join our weather team for tonight, okay? And some adults out there, I know you're scared of the thunder and lightning as well. You can join the weather team for the night tonight as well, okay? So just a couple things to watch out for and a couple jobs for our viewers out there. All right, here is one more look at what we've got going on right now. Hurricane Helene, it's a Category 4 hurricane. This update coming in just minutes ago. Winds 130 miles per hour, moving at about 23 miles per hour. Currently, 80 miles to the west-southwest of Cedar Key, Florida. So we are seeing it slowly but surely get closer to that Cedar Key area. It is a major hurricane, potentially that catastrophic hurricane, and we're going to continue to monitor it as it is approaching landfall. Again, we are potentially going to see that landfall in as early as really the next 2 hours or so. Guys?
All right, Michaela, thank you so much. And it is now just after 8 o'clock. Courtney Robinson here with Dave Wagner. And you are taking a live look right now at US 19 at Klosterman Road. You can see that wind just really pushing the rain through there. Tampa Bay now feeling the impacts of Hurricane Helene, a Category 4 storm.
Yeah, we've seen that on Klosterman Road there. We've seen it on Gulf Boulevard, over on the beaches. So we've seen a lot of it. A couple of mentions here, just things that are closed around here. This is Palm Harbor, live look right now at Klosterman Road. But while we're looking at that, I want to let you know the Gandy Bridge is closed. Howard Franklin, Sunshine Skyway, those are all closed right now, and the Courtney Campbell Causeway as well. So if at this point, as you can tell, the conditions have deteriorated. This is probably not the time to be trying to find safer ground. Hunker down where you can. We will talk you through it and keep you safe as best we can.
Right, and those bridges, those are closed, probably until light tomorrow. We are seeing quite a bit of water that's moving through various areas, all of the areas that you would normally expect to have that water, but much higher now. We've seen, in our coastal communities, Madeira Beach, St. Pete Beach, Clearwater, all of those areas, and then as you saw with Eric Glaster, Tampa. Downtown Tampa and South Tampa, really dealing with a significant amount of water.
This is Gulf Boulevard at Causeway Boulevard, and you can see it is just covered right now with water. This is unusual. This is not a normal thing that we see around here. So this is obviously part of that surge we're talking about. The surge, when we were talking to Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins, says the main surge probably between 10 p.m., 2 a.m. or so, something like that. So it's going to get worse. And you look at it now, it looks pretty bad, but it's definitely going to get worse.
2 a.m. is that high tide marker, right, that we're looking at, and the winds. At this point, this is where we're starting. I think, Bobby, we were talking about 8 o'clock is when things might start to, the wind direction change. So we still are waiting for more water to push, again, onshore and into our northern counties as well. Again, you're looking right now at Gulf Boulevard, at Causeway, just one of the areas where you can see a lot of water there. Guys, do we have another picture that we can show?
We have some boats that have been pushed ashore down at Bradenton. There are a lot of people, a lot of boats around here, a lot of people who are liveaboards as well. But these are some boats right here that have been pushed around. This is, again, down in Bradenton. You're right here, just being battered by the waves. So you think about, number one, the amount of damage that it's causing. You see trees down as well. And this is a common sight throughout our area, and that's why power lines are down. Keep in mind, if your power is out, they cannot put up those bucket trucks with these high winds like that. They're going to have to wait till those die down before they can get those bucket trucks up and do some work on those lines. Some of those problems can be corrected without having to get on the bucket trucks. Other times they have to get up there and work on it physically there.
You can just see the intensity of that wind bringing things down, and this is just one of the areas where you're seeing trees down. We know that this is happening in different areas in the region. We do have a live look for you right now at, I think, Causeway Boulevard. Is that right? At East End Bridge, so you can see right there, obviously closed off. A lot of first responders out there trying to make sure that everybody is safe, that they're in the right areas, so that they're able to respond, and of course, you staying where you need to be keeps things a lot safer.
All right. 10 Tampa Bay Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins keeping an eye on things for us. Bobby, this storm continues to trek, northeast right now?
Yeah, northeast at about 23 miles per hour. So it's moving. It's picked up some speed. The winds, Courtney, you were asking about the wind changing. It's changed. And that's what started when we started seeing these tornadoes start to pop up. That's really when it was happening there. But now you see we've got the southwest winds. That's why the water's coming up. Yeah. And it's still on its way up a little bit. It's slowed a little bit, but it is. Gusting to 62 in Sarasota, 49 in Davis Islands, gusts to 67 in St. Pete, although we've already seen, I think, 70 and 71 for Clearwater and St. Pete, and that's about 64 mile per hour gusts right now in Clearwater. So the winds are peaking out right about now. Now, one of the things that happens when a hurricane goes by, the highest winds are obviously offshore. It will be a little bit closer to this, not much, but they're going to get very similar winds and maybe a little bit more up here in Hernando and Citrus County. But they're just a little bit behind us, right? Right now they still have more southerly winds, but the southwest winds are just about there. So if you're watching from Hernando, if you're watching from Citrus, you will start to see that water come up here in the next hour or two, okay? Wind gusts. Finally, look at this. Starting to come down a little bit here, okay? By 11 o'clock, Winds now 60s to low 70s for gusts in the Tampa area will start to come down and be generally in the upper 50s by the time we get towards midnight. 2 a.m. we're seeing a lot less wind. The tide's still coming up till 2 a.m. but the wind is coming down at that point. So the overall water levels will start to come back down, especially after we get past about 11 p.m. All right, so I think that timing is going to be generally around 10 to 11 for the peak. So here we go right now with the outage, right? This is a probability of seeing power outages, and we've got over 300,000. Was that the number, guys? I think over 300,000 without it. But watch as we go through 10 o'clock. That chance goes up for Hernando and Citrus counties, and obviously especially when you get north and west of there, because the system will be trying to make landfall. And then after that, obviously the winds are coming down. Look at that. Look around. We lost a lot of our cameras out there, so I'll go past that. But one thing you can point out here is, quite a few places with power still.
Yes.
That's good news. International Plaza still got power out there at the airport. This is a live look. That's one of the cameras that we lost. I at least wanted to show you this wind out of the south at 28 miles per hour. Dew point's still very, very high, and you would expect that. But, when Idalia came through, we had a lot of dry, cool air on the backside. We won't see as much of that in this particular one. Here's the forecast right now. I want to take you to 48 mile per hour winds in St. Pete. It's sustained in the 30s in St. Pete with a 48 mile per hour wind gust. Watch what happens. That's by midnight. Watch what happens by 3 a.m. Slowly coming down. It's not going to drop right off, but those winds will come right down. I think we could check in with St. Pete now, right?
Yeah, we do have Miguel Octavio. He is live in St. Pete. We're going to bring him up here in just a moment. St. Pete, one of the areas where we see quite a bit of water, and really an area, especially Shore Acres, right? Snell Isle, where so many people have already been through this in just a year.
Yeah, and increasingly other parts of St.
Yes.
Pete as well. Miguel, where are you right now? What do you see?
We guys went to a higher ground over here. We're at the parking garage of our hotel, actually. We wanted to show you some of the storm surge and the waves that we've been seeing out here tonight, but those conditions just got much stronger throughout the last couple hours or so. We saw a number of people checking out the scene themselves. Obviously something we don't encourage you to do, but even they themselves noticed how strong the conditions were and decided to step out. At that point, it got darker. At that point, there were less people out here. They were starting to notice how dangerous the conditions were out there in St. Pete. So we are here in downtown St. Pete at a much higher ground, safer spot, but you can probably hear a little bit of that wind coming up, and that wind is just pushing the water over land over there.
We're having a difficult time hearing Miguel Octavio there. Sorry about the microphone situation. We'll definitely correct that and bring him to you just shortly here.
Yeah, you could see that wind. I was looking at those trees in the background. I mean, that wind obviously loud too. We do have a situation that's happening on I-4 West at 21st Street in Tampa. Unfortunately, a crash that has turned deadly. You can see the police response right here. This is not the first crash that we have seen this evening either.
No, it's not. And this is unfortunate. We don't know what caused the crash, but we
Right.
certainly know they're not recommending people be out on the roads right now. This is one of the reasons you're tying up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
at least
law enforcement personnel at least on scene there, as well as paramedics. So, and we hope these people are okay. But this is something we unfortunately see on the roads. It's just not real safe to travel right now between the wind and the water. Difficult driving conditions.
We talked earlier a little bit about how people maybe were lulled into this sense of security, like, okay, I can do this, but we want you to be able to stay inside, see these images, see these pictures, so that you really understand what's happening in your community, so you don't have to go out if you there's really no need to, right? This is the time, stay in place, shelter in place, have those plans in place.
All right, we want to go to some video right now in Crystal River, and if you don't mind, Gabrielle, repeat what we're looking at here. This is Kings Bay. Okay, gotcha. This is Kings Bay, as you can see right there on screen here. Just some pictures from what it looks like out there in Crystal River right now. As you go north, the storm surge is going to be worse. So if you notice how bad it is in places like Gulf Boulevard, over on the beaches, or in Shore Acres, and you look at this, it's going to get worse, but over the next 4 hours or so. So we're certainly keeping an eye on conditions there, all up and down the coast, and thinking about all these people. I mean, these are people's lives. They're not just buildings. These are people who live in these places and work in these communities, and this is going to be tough for many folks to recover from.
And you know, when we look at Kings Bay in that Crystal River area, Jen Titus was out there earlier today talking with people. Aaron Parsegian is there this evening, throughout tonight. He's been talking with people, and that is one of the areas where we're expecting to get some of the highest storm surge. I mean, 12 feet, maybe more.
Yeah.
So difficult. Chris, as you can see, Chris Hurst is live for us this evening in Venice. Chris, you have been out and about. What do you have for us right now?
Well, right now, Courtney and Dave, we definitely have Gulf waters that are coming up over roadways and more into downtown coastal areas. We were over by Nokomis Park as we watched the water start to go over the beaches, into parking lots, over dunes. We're here right now on Tamiami Trail in Venice, right next to Napino Trail, where water from Roberts Bay has now pushed onto the roadway. There you can see cars. You know, we tell it to you all the time. Turn around, don't drown, don't try and do it. You might not hurt yourself, but you could easily destroy your car. And yet people, when confronted with the reality of water-covered roadways, are deciding to just go ahead and try and see if they can make it through. Now, one thing that we need to stress is that while we've been out here for about 15, 20 minutes and have actually had to move back as the water has come up underneath our feet and underneath our car, we are seeing some sparking that's happening back behind us. Don't know if that's a transformer, don't know if that's a line itself, but we are starting to enter the time, folks, when the water is going to be touching you, your car, your things, your home. And all of this wind and rain is going to start to mean that some of our electrical wires, you know, power stations, substations could be in danger too. And that means that you really cannot chance going out and trying to stick your feet or going out and walking to any of this water because you don't know if it's going to be electrically charged. So here we are on Tamiami Trail. I'd say just in the last 20 minutes, the water level has risen just another 3, 4, 5, 6 inches to the point now where it is really starting to cover now both sides of the roadway, not just the side that's heading out here on US 41 out to Venice, but here right in the Venice Inlet. We know that there's a Thai food restaurant here, probably just about 200 feet away from me. A dive shop, the Venice Dive Shop, is about 100 yards away from me here. Those now are taking on water. And just as a point of reference, if you know this area, we were on Nokomis Beach at the park there. The road to get there is covered in water now. And the bridge right there in the Intracoastal Waterway, the water is getting dangerously close now to the bottom of that bridge. The Pelican Alley restaurant, you might know, it's underwater right now. And I will tell you, moving from the Gulf into that waterway, which feeds here into the Venice Inlet and other small bays, it was moving incredibly fast, way more than what you normally see from our tides. This water is being pushed by all of that wind, which is now starting to change direction and coming more from the east and the west. We had gusts here in southern Sarasota County, Courtney and Dave, up to 79 miles an hour earlier tonight.
Well, you can certainly understand those conditions there, what people are dealing with. Chris, do you know whether these people took proactive measures? Did they sandbag, or is the water just, well, the sandbag's no match for the water there?
Well, Tim, I don't know if you can pan over to your left and show. Dave, Courtney, there's a house right here on the corner of Napino Trail and the Tamiami Trail, and a guy lifted up his window and he shouted at us, and we thought that he needed help, and we were able to actually communicate by shouting. And he said, no, don't call 911, but there is flooding in the house. I told him that the water could come up several more feet. He said he's okay, but Dave and Courtney, that the water is in his home. And so if you look on the evacuation zone, particularly for this part, Nokomis, Venice, it's lining up exactly with what we thought, that those who are in Zone A definitely are dealing with water coming at least into their street right now, if not into their home.
Well, it'd be good to get his number at least to make sure if we need to alert someone, or if you need to alert someone, make sure this guy gets the help he needs and stays safe. I know you're not going to be in that particular location all night. Chris, additionally, we should mention here the danger of the lithium-ion batteries and electric cars coming into contact with salt water, not just electric cars, but bikes as well, and the danger that has of sparking a fire.
Well, and you knew that quite well, Dave, and we really saw that firsthand during Idalia last year when this issue, if if you didn't know about it before, you certainly know about it now, and you don't have to have the newest, fanciest electric vehicle for this to be an issue. You know, a lot of ATVs, golf carts, a lot of times people put power tools that are electrically charged that have those lithium-ion batteries, and they don't properly store away and secure those during hurricanes. Lithium-ion batteries and the salt water, they don't mix. A chemical reaction goes on. Fires are very easily started, and we are no stranger to that in this part of Florida during a hurricane season. But if you're thinking that maybe the water is going to spare your garage, well, right now I can tell you, it looks a heck of a lot like Debbie and Adalia and Ian and Irma out here right now, where Zone A floodwaters definitely are coming into people's homes.
Chris, how deep is that water where you are right now behind you?
I don't know, and I'm not really going to be brave enough to try and guess.
Don't be brave.
But just looking, but just looking sort of in general relation, I'd say it's definitely at least 18 inches, 2 feet if we were to walk out here into the middle of what is partially a drainage ditch and partially a back alley here right off of the Tamiami Trail.
Yeah, definitely don't go in there. We don't know what else is in there. Not only the power lines that you've been talking about as well. We saw that happening in Tampa with the transformers blowing there. Chris, please be safe, and we'll, of course, check in with you in a little bit as well, so you can show us what's happening in Sarasota and Manatee County, or Sarasota County there.
Yeah, it's really terrifying because you think of all these people, you know, they much of their lives is inside these homes and businesses, and you talked about the one restaurant down there, and they're taking on water, and it's just, you think about the future and what that means for them, both financially and emotionally, and it's just it's a very tough time. It's hard to watch.
It is hard to watch, and again, 2 a.m. is when we're going to see a lot of this water.
Right.
I mean, that's not as high as it's going to go. Like you said, get his number in case we do need to call for help, or if you need that, definitely be reaching out as well. We have crews. Aaron Parsegian is live in Crystal River. I know that we also have Hannah Deneen in Spring Hill. I think we're going to go first. Who do we have?
Well, I think we have Aaron now.
Okay.
His signal is in and out.
Yeah,
so
we can
that's
understand
the
there's a hurricane.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes these cameras don't work perfectly, and the microphones don't work perfectly in storms like this. But let's go to Aaron Parsegian right now. Crystal River, what's it looking like there, Aaron? We know the surge is still taking place here, so more to come. What's it looking like right now?
Well, Dave and Courtney, you said it right. It's starting to look like a hurricane here in Crystal River. In the past hour or so, this wind has really started to gust. The rain is falling sideways. I'm actually under a covered roof right now to a bar that's closed down here just off Kings Bay. But even if I step a closer out, you can see just how powerful this rain and wind is right along the water here. When we're talking about the concerns, though, the concerns isn't the rain so much as it is the potential for storm surge. Right now, we haven't seen Kings Bay level rise too much, so that's the good news at this point, but this is something that they're going to be watching through the night with the forecasted levels 10 to 15 feet of storm surge, which could cause some serious damage to homes and businesses in and around this Kings Bay area. Of course, this is within the evacuation zone. Many of these folks sought higher ground for good reason because they've dealt with flooding and issues from storm surge in the past. We may remember just over a year ago was Hurricane Idalia that brought 7 feet of storm surge, causing serious damage to many homes and businesses throughout Crystal River. We're also keeping a close eye on those water levels tonight. You can see there's a seawall in the background. We were told once that water gets over that seawall, we have about 15 minutes to get higher ground, and that gives you an idea of just how fast this water comes. So that's why it's a good reason people should be out of this area and making their way to higher ground if they haven't done so already.
And Aaron, exactly what you were talking about, we've heard you and Jen as well talking about how quickly this water is going to move. And right now, just kind of the beginning of that, right?
Yeah, that's the case, Courtney. In fact, over the past couple hours, we saw the levels in King Bay start to go down with the tide, but now we're talking about Helene making its way closer to this area and then past it, and that's when we're going to see the water start pushing its way up to many of these communities. Of course, they prepared for it, they're ready for it, they've dealt with it in the past, but we're talking about historic, potentially, levels of storm surge. So that's the biggest concern here. When I was talking about Idalia that caused all that damage, that was around 7 feet of storm surge. And now projections show 10 to 15 feet, so that's even more they could be possibly dealing with as we go later into the night and early tomorrow morning.
Chris, it's kind of a black hole behind you right now. As you look around, have you seen people out wandering, driving, or are people pretty much hunkered down at this point?
The good news, many more people are hunkered down. Dave, you may remember when we were out here throughout this afternoon, early this evening, things were still calm outside. You couldn't have understood there was a hurricane if we weren't, on the news talking about it. So people were out, they were enjoying the weather, kind of looking around, seeing what was going on. But then a couple hours ago, we really started that wind and rain beginning to pick up. And a lot of this area has closed downtown. We don't see many people out, not many people on the roads at this point. So that's the good news.
Aaron Parsegian in Crystal River tonight. We will be checking back with you shortly here.
Yeah, and we have Hannah Deneen, who's just south of Chris in Hernando County in Spring Hill. Hannah, we spoke with you earlier. There are people who are kind of out checking out where things stood. I would imagine that that's not happening right now.
Well, Courtney, we moved locations because that was a spot where there was only one road in and not somewhere where we want to continue hanging out. We actually stopped here at Jenkins Creek off Shoreline Boulevard in Hernando Beach, and we stopped here because there was a line of streetlights across this creek here, but within the last 10 minutes since we've been here, we heard a transformer blow and all of those streetlights went out. We do have a flashlight here so you can try to get a sense, of what we were trying to show you earlier when those streetlights were still up, and that is just the force of this wind that is whipping across the water here. And this is the story that we've seen throughout the past few hours here in Hernando County, which is that the water is still low at this point, relatively low in terms of what we're expecting to see throughout the evening, but we are seeing a lot of strong wind. We have seen debris in the roadway and several reports of trees that are down blocking certain roadways, and we have seen utility crews already out and about cleaning up those trees and that debris. We might have a photo that I had sent in earlier from the Hernando County Sheriff's Office. It's a photo of Steuben Street in Weeki Wachee, and it is a tree that fell on a house there, and we were there earlier as utility crews were cleaning that up. I spoke with a spokesperson for the county earlier. She tells me 36,000 sandbags were distributed throughout Hernando County within the last week. And she says she hopes that's an indicator that people have hunkered down and they have their homes as ready as they can be. For now, as we wait to see this water continue to rise over the next several hours, it's a matter of just hoping that everyone is prepared as we pray for the best. In Hernando Beach, Hannah Deneen, 10 Tampa Bay.
Yeah, you think about hundreds of thousands of power outages here in the state of Florida. People left in the dark right now. It's bad enough to be in a storm like this, but really have no communication going on. It's really difficult and really terrifying. I was talking the other day. Go ahead.
Sorry, let me ask Hannah, actually, while I have you, because that is a good point when we talk about the power outages. Are you seeing, Hannah, like when your guys are driving around, street lights out, that sort of thing? I mean,
Well, Courtney, that was the second transformer that we heard blow in the last few hours. Yeah, Courtney, that was the second transformer we heard blow in just the last few hours. And we have seen, like we said, these street lights are out, and it is certainly much darker on these roads now. We're actually going to relocate, get to a place where we feel a little bit safer with a little bit more light in the next bit. But yeah, we're seeing things progressively get darker out here.
Yeah, it's terrifying for folks being left in the dark. I was talking the other day, we talked about State CFO Jimmy Petronas. He was talking about a few years ago when a hurricane was bearing down on his hometown. Yeah. His wife was having cancer surgery at Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa, so he was away from there. So he was watching on television this storm bearing down. He's watching newscasts from up in the Panhandle, and he said it was really difficult and emotional for him, not really knowing what's happening to his hometown. And that's the problem for a lot of these folks who are left in the dark tonight. Real lack of communication, lack of ability to see what's going on. It's dark outside, you don't know what's headed your way, and then you see the water creeping in. It's really terrifying.
I can only imagine being in that situation. We're here, we evacuated our station. We're here near the Hard Rock now on higher ground. So we have that safety in our crews. You know, I guess we take for granted too, Dave, being in this and all the all the things that we've talked about to maintain our safety. That is why our crews are out there making sure that you know what's happening. We do have Miguel Octavio, who is live in St. Pete. Miguel, when we spoke to you a little bit earlier, it was a little hard to hear. It was so windy.
Courtney, that's really the case here. Still very windy conditions. We were over closer to Vinoy Park, hoping to show you some of the storm surge and that wind that you can see right now. But clearly those conditions were deteriorating, getting unsafe. But I can tell you that storm surge looking very strong. And that's really the conditions we're seeing out here in downtown St. Pete. We are still on much higher ground. Perhaps we can show you just how strong those trees are swaying at the moment. But all day long, there have been people just surprised to see how strong the flooding has been, even when it wasn't raining, even before these windy conditions were really picking up. So like Dave mentioned there's just a lot of concern from people about what their homes could look like, particularly in the Shore Acres neighborhood, for instance. We followed up with people days before the storm. They were feeling concerned, thinking that the flooding was going to be much stronger than Hurricane Idalia. The projections did not look good for them. And in fact, some of those streets now closed to the public, and their neighborhood association president hoping that people were taking those evacuation orders very seriously. But just all day here in St. Pete, we've been seeing flooding since there was daylight out here, and those conditions just getting much stronger. We did see a number of people stopping by, taking pictures and videos. They were impressed to see the wind and that storm surge, but even then, when it got darker, they started to realize this was not safe conditions for them. There was debris everywhere, tree branches falling down, certainly just a cause for concern. And we just heard from Pinellas County Emergency Management as well. Certainly they're hoping those people who live in the Zone A area are out there, but they're also asking people, if you don't live in Zone A, maybe in much higher ground, they're hoping that you're staying indoors, taking shelter, because conditions to drive outside right now, I can tell you it was unsafe. There were certain points where my fellow reporter and I not feeling safe quite there as well, so we wanted to make sure we were on higher ground and making sure we were also taking shelter to report on some of these conditions we're seeing out here in Pinellas County. Courtney and Dave.
Yeah, downtown St. Pete, of course, Miguel, is a lot of it's on the water there, and there's North Shore Park, there's Straub Park, there's Vinoy Park. Do you know if those parks are taking on water tonight?
Yeah, we were actually out there earlier and hoping to show you some of those conditions, but some of that water was going to those sidewalks, getting closer out there. And that's why some people were going out there to take pictures and videos while there was still daylight out, but they started to realize perhaps we shouldn't be out here. Those conditions getting much stronger, so the water was spilling over a little bit into the sidewalks. It's been like that all day, even when there was daylight out, but now that the winds have gotten much stronger, much of that water is still being pushed through, so we decided to get to higher ground to report this information to you as safe as we could.
All right, Miguel, definitely you be safe, and we'll be checking in with you throughout the evening. We have 8 hours.
We've got a ways to go, and we know it's a rough night for a lot of folks at home, and we're sympathetic to that. We'll be here with you throughout this storm. I promise you, we'll be walking you through everything we know, try to show you as much as we can, and give you an update, all the conditions out there. It's going to be a rough few hours here, but we're going to get through it.
I do want to share something. We had a viewer call, and she asked us to please share this. It's a great reminder. If you have your animals outside, please bring your animals in, like dogs in the backyard and that sort of thing. She says she's seen a lot of her neighbors do that. You want to make sure that they come in. And
for all the women out there, bring your husband in as well. Might be something to think about at this point, if deserving.
Judy sent you here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, all kidding aside, we do have David Sheely, who turned in sports and has come to the news side for us. You're out in Tarpon Springs getting a lay of the land. David, what are you seeing tonight?
So over here in Tarpon Springs, we've been dealing with wind pretty much all day, but the wind has picked up as of late. Rainfall is coming in sideways. You can see the effect the wind is having on the trees right here. We're at the Hampton Inn and Suites right down the road from Tarpon Springs High School. We're trying to give you a good visual of the rain coming in sideways. People are still going north and south here on US 19. They're going both directions. The businesses have been mostly closed. We have passed by some businesses that were open. As for the ones that were closed, they have put sandbags in front of the doors. They've boarded their doors. And one store owner I actually spoke to earlier today said his biggest concern was a power outage instead of flooding. And there has been some flickering lights we've seen at this hotel specifically. We've also seen some flashes in the sky. Can't say exactly what they were, but anytime you start seeing flashes in the sky, you know you should probably head indoors. We spoke to some local police. They said the most 911 calls they've gotten has dealt with down trees, maybe some power lines going down as well, but that's been the number one concern here is the wind having an effect on just about everything around us. So this is, something's going on around. This is about the safest place we can be. We were over by Tarpon Springs High School, but it was simply a little too dangerous with the down trees. So what we're doing is we're really just staying right here by the hotel because it's the safest place, the safest spot for us to be, just trying to err on the side of caution. So all we're dealing with really right now in this spot is a lot of high wind. It comes in very high gusts at some points, but it's been windy all day.
It certainly has been windy all day. And, you know, David, when we talk about those down power lines, those trees, have they been out there? Have they been making any like rescues with having to get people and take them to safety at all? Do you know? I mean, you said you talked to police.
No, they didn't mention anything about that. All they've said is a lot of the calls that they got had to do with down trees coming down in backyards and in front yards. We haven't seen any road closures when we were out. They were just telling people to be cautious as you were on the road. That's why we still see cars going in both directions on US 19. So a lot of the precautions have been taken in terms of just staying away from power lines in case they go, staying away from trees in case they go down, because that is, again, the number one concern for the people here, for the neighbors here. And then we were also by the docks, and their biggest concern too was their boats floating away. So they have roped their boats on the dock just with a couple more ropes just to keep it more secure. We actually just saw a light go out. So there's another example of how the electricity has been one of the other concerns for the business owners that we spoke to as well, is losing power and how that could affect them going forward, just because some of these businesses really rely on that power. And if they don't have it, they're not really sure how they're going to be able to operate, because some of them really do need that.
And we have so many people, almost 500,000 people, maybe more at this point. David, thank you so much. I'm going to let you get inside. I know things are really picking up there, so we'll let you, get inside, right? Yep. Take a break, make sure that you're, we have stuff that's out there that can be flying around. We talk about all of that.
It's a changing situation. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just checking to see, the power outages, because that is such a thing, it's such a big thing during this, especially when we have this storm surge. And we talk about how storm surge, number one killer, right? When it comes to these storms, about 500,000 people in the state without power. And looking at the map, it's a huge chunk of the Tampa Bay region.
Yeah, and we know it's going to grow as this storm moves to the north.
Right.
Bobby, we've talked about the ebb and flow of a hurricane, and in this particular case, we've talked about there's going to be some calm times, and then that storm surge comes in. Can you talk us through, are we still on that same kind of timeline, the maximum storm surge that we might see around here between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., or has that changed a bit?
It's going to be a little bit sooner. It's sped up a little bit. I just looked at the numbers. St. Pete right now is running about 5.5 feet above where the normal tide should be right now. We've been running almost a foot above it anyways, but that's a solid 4-foot surge in St. Pete right now. We've probably got a little bit, it's still going up. We've got about another hour or two of that at least because of the winds. Plus, guys, the tide's still coming up. High tide's not until after 2 a.m. So it's coming up, and we could add another foot on top of that just from the tide alone. This is downtown. That's TGH. You know what I see when I see this? It all lit up. I mean, obviously TGH has got all kinds of generators, but look across here. We've got some light, some power on Bayshore, some of the apartments and condos we have there. That's Davis Islands. I know it's tough to see, but again, I do see lights out there, so at least they have some power in that area. 86 degrees. Michaela was like, does it really feel like 98? I'm like, yeah, it's Tampa.
Oh.
Even in the middle of a hurricane. Not Adalia. Remember, on the backside of Adalia, we had 60s. We didn't even believe the data at one point because I was like, well, I had to go outside. I don't think we get that. We are seeing winds in the upper 20s to low 30s still. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Let's kind of reset and start from the top. Helene is still Category 4. It's right here. It's west-northwest, almost northwest of Tampa right now. And that speed of 23 miles per hour is the reason why that peak surge has come back from about midnight, if you took one time, and maybe closer to about 10 or 11. That's about 80 miles west-southwest of Cedar Key, okay? Now, those are the 8 a.m. numbers. Look at it here on the map here, and you can see it's going to move quickly off to the north and the northeast, and then start that turn back to the north and northwest. All right, because it's moving so quickly, they have now issued hurricane warnings further up. Atlanta's right there. There are almost hurricane warnings for Atlanta. They could see gusts in the 70s. 74 and up would be a hurricane force gust. That's because it will fall apart when it moves over land. But number one, it's warm, it's muggy right there, right? Because of all the feed that's come in ahead of it. And it's moving so quick, it just takes time to fall apart. And it's not going to have that much time to get that much weaker by the time it gets that distance. So that's why it's going to go a little bit further. You can see an eye wall. I don't think and you can see there it is. Look at that northern part of the eye wall. It's been consistently strong, and especially the last 3 to 4 hours. And you can see the bulk of the rain is actually moving through our neck of the woods right now. This is about 85 miles out. It's actually a little less than that now since I made this graphic. So it's about 80 miles. It's moving about 23 miles. So that's less than 4 hours for landfall. All right, so what time we got? 8:45, 9 o'clock. So we're talking 12:30, midnight, 12:30 for landfall. As it moves up towards the Big Bend area right now. This is still the center line from the hurricane center, and you can see it's a little east of there. So Perry to me looks like one of the ones that they'll call it, right? When it makes landfall, sometime around midnight or just after, it's where the center of the storm goes. And you notice it looks like, watch, it almost looks like it goes to the right a little bit there. That's a little bit of a wobble. That's what they do. They wobble. But I still think Perry is going to be, a little bit east of what the forecast track has right now. Now, our neck of the woods, here's the rain. The heaviest rain now right along the immediate coast. And then this little band you see here in eastern Hillsborough and Polk County. So Bartow, Plant City seeing a ton of rain. And now that's moving out of there. It's going into Lakeland. And Lakeland, we're going to see a really good amount of rain for about 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes or so. And that can add up pretty quickly. But you notice a little bit further to the south, we've got more breaks in the rain, and that will be what we get for the rest of the evening hours. So steady, heavy rainfall up and down the immediate coast, US 19 all the way up through Citrus County. Some breaks as you get into Pinellas and Hillsborough, but look how fast these things are moving. I mean, these clouds are moving 75, 85 miles per hour. That is really quick. And the ones up above it, of course, the lower ones are moving just a little bit slower. Man, we've still got some very heavy rainfall. So when we were talking about this the last several days, it's kind of like, here's what the model thinks it'll look like. But the devil in the details is where do these rain bands line up? And that's going to determine who gets a lot of heavy rainfall. So not going to be a Debbie situation. That's the good news, right? Especially not widespread like we had with all that rain in Manatee and Sarasota County. But we will have some rain. Now, we were talking about the tornado watch, the chance for tornadoes. They killed the back end of this one, right? They cut it off. And they started a new one that starts from just north of Sarasota and goes all the way up. That whole thing's in effect until 6 a.m. I don't think it lasts here until 6 a.m. I think they'll start trimming this thing back over the next 3 to 4 hours. Okay, so we'll keep you updated on that. Bottom line is we still have to watch for a chance of tornado. Okay, that's going to be continuing. Now, there's the lightning now on the northwest side. Look right in here. You see that north and northwest quadrant of the eye wall. If that thing keeps wrapping around, it's going to easily maintain 130 mile per hour winds. Our winds really peaking now. Gusts in the 60s. We've had gusts in the 70s. 49 mile per hour gusts at Davis Islands. But look at the steady wind at St. Pete and Sarasota in the 40s. And that's what's driving the water. We're still seeing winds up here out of the southeast in Hernando and especially Citrus County. But they're getting ready to get this. And they're going to get a little bit more wind than what we got. And that's why that surge is going to be so high up there. So they really need to keep an eye on it. Now, these are high wind reports from earlier today. 81 mile per hour gusts is what we've seen so far at Egmont Channel. That's right, basically the mouth of the Tampa Bay. Longboat Key had 78 mile per hour winds. Clearwater Beach, 74 mile per hour winds. 70 at Albert Whitted Airport. That's right there in downtown St. Pete. Skyway Fishing Pier, 69. St. Pete Clearwater International, 68. And Sarasota Bradenton, 68. That was really last 2 to 3 hours, really, more than anything else. And some of these were closer to about 3 hours ago. Here's the forecast as we go through midnight. Still have the onshore winds about what we're dealing with right now, but a little less, just a little less. But look what's happening up north. They're going to get that wind coming in here. It's 8, is it almost 9 o'clock yet, guys? What do we got? 10 minutes to 9. So we are looking at about 10:30 for those heavier winds to get into northern Hernando and Citrus County. Now, after midnight, we go out to about 3 a.m. Still have the onshore winds. High tide has just passed. I mean, just passed. So the water's not going anywhere. And the wind's still blowing, so the surge is up. So we're going to keep this surge for a while. This is not an Idalia thing where it came up and then it went right back down. This is a thing where the surge is going to stick around for a while. But 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., the winds start coming down, 20s with gusts in the 20s to near 30. And then by the time we get through around lunchtime and into the afternoon hour tomorrow's just a bit breezy day. Let's put it that way. All right, tides. We are about here. All right? And so we're looking at this peaking and maintaining for a little while. It may start to come down a little bit. It's not coming down because of the tide. The water tide level is also coming up. It's actually just coming down just a touch because of the fact that we have some less wind coming into this neck of our woods, or neck of the woods, right? We are not seeing that water come down yet. And it will not start to come down and probably after 11 o'clock or so. The high tide times, let's just start. This is Friday morning in Crystal River at 4:02. It's a lower tide, but that's going to cause some issues because they're still going to have quite a bit of water there. Clearwater, high tide's coming up at 11:09. That's almost the crest of all of this, right? Gulfport, just after midnight tonight, we'll have a high tide. Just all right in the same ballpark here, really. And the wind will be very similar for all of these three places, Clearwater, Gulfport, and St. Pete. High tide's around 158. Depending on where you're looking at, it's between 158 and about 220 or so. So still have the water to go. You can see all these forecasts that they had. It's probably going to end up being on these lower ranges, probably for most areas. But even those, a foot or two above some of the records that we've had. So this is a big storm for us, storm surge wise. You can see the center right now. I mean, it's taking aim right there on the coastline. All right, storm surge forecast. So this is what the numbers looked like. Remember, I was telling you it was better than records. So those numbers for the forecast are the top end. So subtract about 3 feet from those numbers and compare that to the record. So Cedar Key, about 8 feet. That's a foot better than the record. Clearwater, about 5 feet. That's a foot better. And that was 1993, the no-name storm. St. Pete, about 5 feet. That's about a foot over. And that's just preliminary kind of forecasting that I'm doing here, but that looks like it's going to be pretty close to what these numbers end up being. Guys, we're getting it out of here. It's just usually when you see hurricanes come through and you get storm surge like this, it tends to drop off pretty quickly. This is just a bigger storm, and the angle it's coming at is going to keep it here. And the tide, of all things that you can't control. We can't control any of the weather, right? But the tide, too, we timed that one wrong to keep it up.
All right, well, the good news is this storm isn't going to take a turn into Tampa Bay. The bad news is it's already delivered a lot of water and more surge is on the way.
That's right. We're going to go to Chris Hurst, who's live for us in Venice. Chris, down trees, down power lines, that rising water, just not a great combination.
Yeah, Courtney, we saw some sparking here about a half an hour ago. We're on the Tamiami Trail in Venice. If you go back to where the camera is, back where I'm looking at right now, that'll take you down to Englewood and down into Port Charlotte and Charlotte County. But here on Tamiami Trail here in downtown Venice, we have the Venice Dive Shop here right at this intersection where water now from both Roberts Bay and Dana Bay that both feed into the Gulf, the water from the Gulf pushing into the bay, having both of those bays overspill their banks now. And I think we'll have some more cars coming because we are in that time of a storm now where even though roads are covered in water, people still are getting out and driving through them. And we cannot stress to you how terrible of an idea that is. Not only could it potentially harm you, but it certainly could damage your car, leave you stranded. There's a car at an intersection that I'm looking at right now, just about 100 feet off camera, that it stalled out trying to get into one of these residential neighborhoods. So all of the residential neighborhoods in this Venice, Nokomis, Englewood area that were in Zone A, we know now from Sarasota County officials that they are seeing the street flooding and the home flooding that was predicted with this storm surge, as Bobby was talking about, as Hurricane Helene comes farther north, the winds will shift direction. And down here in Sarasota County, they have. They aren't coming out of the east and the southeast anymore. Now they're coming out of the south, southwest. Still gusty, up to 40, 50 miles per hour. Sustained winds still around 30 miles an hour as the tide continues to creep up. And all of that water from Helene being pushed over now onto roadways here in southern Sarasota County. So I will also show you that with this spotlight that we have here, if you can see just how fast moving this water is. And this is just a drainage ditch and side alley here right by the Venice Inlet that is now flooded. And we just had another couple come up in a pickup truck and actually walk in probably about knee-deep water. Dave, Courtney, you were asking how deep the water is. Well, we saw two people who went into a home just off camera about 10 minutes ago, and it was up to their knees, and they are still looking through that house with their lantern. I don't believe the power is on for any of these homes anymore. We did check with Florida Power and Light. Manatee County has about 10% of its customers without power right now. That's about 33,000 people. In Sarasota County, it's about 10% of their customers as well, about 28,000 people without power right now. So even though it is no longer raining, the winds still are picking up and can be furious at times, but really we are watching the water. Just as all of our meteorologists were saying in the lead up to Helene, we might not see as much rain as we did during Debbie, but what we have to watch for is the storm surge, particularly when the storm starts to go farther north and the winds shift direction and are able to push that water more from west to east instead of from south to north.
All right, Chris, you know, I do have a question for you. I think you may have answered it, but you talk about people that are coming through, driving through, those individuals, they got out there in a house near you. You spoke about another man who's in a house and saying, hey, I got water in here as well. I was curious, are those the people driving by, are those looky-loos, or are there people who now want to go and see, okay, what does my home really look like? Have you been able to talk to anybody?
No, we have, you know, the people that were right here, we thought they were going to turn around and leave. That's why we thought they were turning in. But then, you know, before we could even really shout out to them, they were already, you know, about 20 feet into the water that was knee deep. But honestly, Courtney, Dave, we're just watching Tamiami Trail right here in Venice right now, just waiting for the first car to stall. Because it's not like this water is going to recede anytime soon. It's going to be several hours before we even crest. And then we'll be lingering with this storm surge for more hours after that. You know, here we are on US 41, and these cars are creating a wake, and at the top of these waves from the wake, the wind is pushing it, so it almost looks like it's sort of white-capped here on the Tamiami Trail.
All right, Chris Hurst live for us in Venice this evening, and we will be checking in with him again throughout the hour. Chris, thank you. Just so many people driving. It's true, driving right past him right there, and you don't want to see that. I mean, the water is not where it will be.
You know, and it seems like everybody thinks their car can get through water. I've been guilty of that as well, and you think you can make it, but sometimes it's deeper than you think. And the old adage, you know, turn around, don't drown, and that's obviously what the authorities want us to follow.
And you don't know what's there. I mean, we say this so often, but you don't know what is there or what isn't there, right? If the road has, you know, we're going to see all of that in the morning. There's plenty of time.
There is. Let's take a look right now at Clearwater Beach and some video we have from there right now. And here's what it looks like tonight. Oh, wow. You see, wow, it looks kind of like a river there, doesn't it? And this is right through Clearwater Beach. You see those homes there, one-story homes, and you wonder how they are faring right now. You worry that they may be taking on water. But you see the movement of the water kind of moving around there, and it gives you a sense, the power of water. No matter how much we want to sandbag and board up our homes, it is really no match for water like this.
It is so much water, and to think that there will be more, and we still have that wind that's out there. Just you know, all of the things that we typically see in a storm like this, but just so much more, and still so many hours to go.
Right. You know, it gets worse as you head north in terms of storm surge, and we've been checking in with Aaron Parasic. He's up in Crystal River right now. Aaron, what are you seeing right now? How has it changed over the last few minutes?
Well, Dave, we're really starting to feel the force of the storm even off the coast of the Gulf here because that wind is really starting to pick up. Some of these gusts are so strong you have to brace yourself against it. And on top of that, we're seeing that rain starting to blow sideways. I'm on top of a covered roof right here. There's a closed down bar just off of Kings Bay here in downtown Crystal River. So we do have some protection, but if I step out here where the seawall is, that's when you really start to feel those winds. We did mention, though, the storm surge. That's going to be the main concern as we go deeper into the night and into the early morning. Right now, we can tell you the levels on Kings Bay. I just saw an update from the mayor here in Crystal River. They're still showing lower levels, but that's expected to change soon as we approach deeper into the night and the storm starts to pass us. We start getting that wind blowing the water up into many of these areas. As you mentioned, potentially record storm surge, historic storm surge, 10 to 15 feet in the forecast right now. This is an area that's dealt with storm surge and flooding a lot of times in the past. Last year it was Hurricane Idalia that brought 7 feet of storm surge, damaging homes and businesses in this area. Some people that we've talked to around this neighborhood still cleaning up after then. One woman who evacuated the Kings Bay area here to stay at a hotel about 20 minutes away in Lecanto said she's been living on the second floor of her condo for the past year because of the damage caused by Idalia when a couple feet of water went inside her home. So they're watching this anxiously through the night, hoping it's not as worse, but as we're mentioning, right now it's being forecasted is worse than what they've seen in several decades here in Crystal River.
It's just, 1, 2, 3 punch for some of these folks. Aaron, thanks.
And we want to give you a live look right now at the Courtney Campbell Causeway. I've been kind of checking in on social media to see what how our law enforcement is doing. A lot of them having to respond to accidents that have happened on roadways. This is the Courtney Campbell
Incredibly
Causeway.
dark, huh?
Very, very dark. I mean, you can see water there on the road. The Courtney Campbell is closed at this point. The Gandy's closed. Howard Franklin's closed. Skyway is closed. And again, it is so dark. We're going to be dealing with much of this in these, in the pitch black hours, right? Not a lot of light. The power's gone out. You see that right there. Transformers blowing. You can see that in the background. So not a lot of light right there, and you have no idea what you're going to be potentially running into if you're trying to drive. So we don't want to see that. I did see that when I was talking about checking with law enforcement. Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office getting ready to send out their night shift, or their night shift deputies are probably out there deploying, ready to provide assistance where needed. I do want to remind you, obviously call 911 for emergencies, but they have that non-emergency line that is active that you can call for other things. And we heard a lot of the calls that are coming in for down trees and whatnot. 813-247-8200 for Hillsborough County. A lot of the night shift deputies, officers, they're going to be out there, and we want them to be safe too.
Of course, of course. 10 Tampa Bay's Eric Glasser is in Tampa right now along the river walk there. Eric, what are you seeing? How has it changed over the last half hour or so?
Dave, the river walk is a river. That's how it's changed. We're at the corner of Ashley and Broering. That's right downtown, right by the convention center. We were there. We started to move away from that area. We were concerned because we started to see the water come up, and we weren't sure that we were going to be able to get out of there. So we said, well, let's head back into town, and we weren't able to get over the bridge either. Take a look behind me, and you can see that's the corner. Very, very familiar to a lot of people, I'm sure, very heavily traveled. This is the corner of Ashley Drive and Broering, just on the west side of downtown Tampa. The Riverwalk runs along this road, and that is the bridge right there that goes right over, as the sign says, the Hillsborough River. Well, right now the Hillsborough River has poured out onto Ashley Drive and over the Riverwalk. I'm just going to have you take a look from side to side. They put these barriers out here, plastic barriers, to try to keep people from crossing into the area, but they've actually lifted those barriers up at this point. Those guys are just floating around in this vicinity. We did have a couple of trucks that were able to make it through, but I can tell you there are some cars off to the left of us. In fact, you can see the headlights of one of the cars that's gotten stuck out here. A couple of trucks, as I said, did have the clearance to make it through here, but this area is currently impassable. I really just wanted to stop and bring you this picture as we were heading back towards Bayshore Boulevard, where we know that there is tremendous flooding this evening. But I wanted to be able to show you this because this is something that we were not necessarily expecting. Downtown Tampa itself is outside of Zone A. I am not positive whether or not, because it is so close to the water, that Ashley Drive would be considered part of Zone A. It certainly looks like it would be at this point, because with the amount of surge that we have right now, the water is up and over the Riverwalk and onto Ashley Drive. Right across the street, you can see one of those light boxes, an electrical box. Obviously, that's a concern. I know that just off to the left of us, there's a building over there. That's one of the pump station buildings for the city of Tampa and the water system. So that's obviously a concern when you see water high enough to reach that. Hopefully they have that buttoned down and taken care of. But you can see the fire hydrant also right here behind me. That gives you an idea of just how high the water is just at the curb here. But we were able to see somebody try to walk through here, and again, a couple of trucks. I would say that that's at least 2 to 3 feet of water right there, up and over the curb, out of the river, and onto downtown Tampa. Guys, I think we're going to be seeing more of this. One of the gentlemen that I spoke with the city who came out here to try and resecure some of those barriers told me that he had just come from Davis Islands, where we were also located earlier, and he said the water is now up and over the seawall and inundating some of the streets. I asked him if they were passable. He said at the southern end he does not think so. I asked him whether or not the water had gotten to the homes yet, and he said he did not believe at this point it had. And how much longer will this go on? The city is telling me that they believe at least another hour. That's that tug of war, if you will, between the tide, right, and the amount of water coming in. Tide still going up, water still coming in. That means it's rising. Eventually, things will start to level off as the wind dies down and the surge starts to recede a little bit. But I believe that next high tide here is close to 2 in the morning, so we still got a ways to go with that. Reporting live in Tampa, Eric Glasser, 10 Tampa Bay.
And Eric, you're right. Yeah, about 2 a.m. when we're expecting to see that high tide. You know, looking at that, and you talk about, you know, with the river not quite expected that evacuation zone. Have you all been able to make it to the west side of South Tampa, over that in that West Shore area, down West Shore Boulevard? I know that's probably eventually.
We have not been over there. I have. Yeah, we have not been over there. I have spoken with people from the city. The west side, obviously, it floods. That's flood zone A, so they've got issues over there. But also farther south, almost anything south of Gandy right now and down toward Port Tampa, that's also seeing flooding coming up and over into the streets. Again, maybe not quite as bad as they thought, but we do still have time for that to be pushing in. And I will tell you that right now where I'm standing, you can see it. The wind is calm. About a half an hour ago when we were over at the convention center, it was whipping. So you have these squall lines that come through and they continue to push water up and through, but fortunately not a ton of rain. And that would obviously add to the problem, right? Because as we've demonstrated before, when the tide comes up, when the surge comes in, it covers up the pipes that allow water to run out of South Tampa. That's the drainage system. It goes into the bay. When the bay is too high, it covers the pipes, the water has nowhere to go. So if this was a combination of that tidal surge, high tide, and a ton of rain, like we saw maybe with Debbie, this area would be underwater. But right now, fortunately, we're seeing the extent of it, but it's not as bad as, believe it or not, it might have otherwise been if we had had a ton of rain along with everything else, guys.
Yeah, Eric, I'm really struck that that water is moving behind you there. It's not just stationary, it's just not just rising, it's actually moving water right now.
Right. Exactly, guys, because it's not like we've had, again, with rain, where you have puddling water and it continues to rise. This is the river. The river is up over its banks. It's moving. So you're absolutely right. That water is not just being blown by the wind. It has a current to it, and that is the water that's being pushed in along with the tide coming up and with the water being pushed in by the wind and the surge. So yes, a moving river. We saw, again, somebody try to walk through there. You can see the current around their legs. Not something that you want to walk into again. Please do not walk into this water. Do not try to drive through it. It is simply not safe to do so. And certainly, now that it's dark, there's no way of gauging the depth or what's in it. Back to you.
All right, Eric Glasser live for us in downtown Tampa, showing us that the Riverwalk has become the river right there, and we're, you know, going to see that water rise even more. Definitely do not want to be in these flood waters this evening, and there will be some time before they recede as well.
Yeah, I'm Dave Wagner along with Courtney Robinson right here. We're with you all night long here, keeping you informed, prepared, and connected. We are keeping track of Hurricane Helene, now a Category 4 storm, moving up. It is now north of Tampa Bay, so it's not coming back this way, but it is going to bring a lot of storm surge and that's going to be the problem for us around here. So we're following all the effects of this tremendously large storm.
Dave, you and I were down in Lee County, in Fort Myers, after Hurricane Ian.
Right.
And this amount of surge that we saw with that storm, devastating, heartbreaking. And you know, some of our areas are bracing for that right now. I know that we have some video from Lee County. You know, they've had, we'll go to that in a minute, but we do have some video coming in from Lee County where they've kind of seen the first little bit
They've
of
seen
that.
it firsthand
Yeah.
and how bad that is.
Yeah.
Let's go to David Shealy right now. He's in Tarpon Springs, been there all evening for us. David, what are you seeing? Are you seeing the water rise there, the storm surge taking effect?
So I'm not seeing any water rising just yet, but I tell you what, this entire vicinity lost power for about a good 60 seconds, maybe about 10 or 15 minutes ago. It was pitch black for a good 60 seconds, and then all the lights came back on, street lights, hotel lights as well. And then about 5 minutes after that, we saw linemen heading south on US 19. That's the first thing I need to tell you guys. The second thing is about 25 minutes ago when I was live with you, we heard a loud banging because we were talking about how high the wind speed was. It was about 10 feet away from us. This sign right here, it's going to be upside down, but I'll turn it. This sign hit a bench. It flew off wherever it was, and it hit a bench about 10 feet away from us because that's how high the winds are right now. And so I know here we like to keep you informed, prepared, and connected. I'm going to add 3 words to that. Valued, loved, and precious. You are valued, loved, and precious. And I want to tell you right now, if you hear weird noises while you're outside, don't try to turn those question marks into periods. It could be a sign like this flying. Please head inside. It's not safe to be outside right now. We're in the safest spot that we can be. We are right by the entrance of our hotel. We've seen trees go down about a couple miles up the road near Tarpon Springs High School. This is the safest place we can be. But right now it's still windy. Rain has slowed just a little bit, and power outages have started happening here in Tarpon Springs.
David, keep in mind behind you is a billboard for a personal injury attorney if anything should happen to you out there. Right behind you, directly back there.
We're keeping you informed, prepared, and connected.
And safe.
I see it. I see it. I like his smile.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
That's how he's smiling. Yeah.
Thanks,
All
David.
right, David, thank you. You know, when we've seen David, Eric, and Chris live just in the past few minutes here, one thing that you really haven't seen is that wind.
Yes.
But they say that it comes and it goes. Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins is here now, and Bobby, that wind. When we see this, that doesn't mean it's gone.
No, it doesn't mean it's gone or not. But we have a little bit of breaking news. We just got the 9 p.m. update. 140 mile per hour winds. That's still a Cat 4. Cat 4 goes all the way up to 156. Cat 5 starts at 157 and just goes up. There's nothing above Cat 5. It's moving to the northeast at 24 miles per hour. The pressure's actually up 1 millibar. Nothing different there. It's now 65 miles west of Cedar Key. That's just west-northwest of Crystal River right now. You can see it right in there. Obviously, you can see it's very close to landfall. I'm still thinking might be about 11:30 now time frame for that to happen, for official landfall for that to happen. Now, what's going to happen is this will continue to race, I should say, to the north and the northeast. But that basically means that it will end up on shore and still moving quickly. And so as a result, it's going to be pushing into the Panhandle and Georgia as a hurricane. There's that forecast, and you can see the turn. And this was what we were questioning. When does this happen? I mean, it looked like it was going northeast across the Gulf the whole time. But then hurricane warnings all the way up almost to Atlanta. That's just amazing. And then it does a little loop up there, just kind of comes back out as it's falling apart, be a rainmaker for parts of the Carolinas and up north. So there you go, 140 mile per hour winds. You can see the eye wall. It's been wobbling a little bit. That's what it does. But generally, it's been in really good shape. And that's what's allowed it to strengthen. That's why we've been seeing those lightning bolts, those strikes right around the center of the eye. I don't have it turned on here. There's still some lightning out there, but you can see it is pushing a lot of heavy rain up into northern Florida now, especially to get north of Citrus County. Because Citrus County, we're still getting it, and we will for another hour or so. So this puts it about 60 miles from landfall, moving at 24, two and a half hours or so before landfall. So yeah, it'll basically be right around midnight, maybe between 11:30 and midnight it has landfall. Look at all the lightning around it. That is, you know what, Ian did something similar when it had all that lightning right before landfall. So what you have is a Category 4 hurricane strengthening at landfall. I didn't think it would get to 140. We were thinking 125, 130, and kind of surprised to see it to get to 130 just about an hour ago. Now to see 40, but when you see all of that lightning, that's it. That is a super strong eye wall, and that is a good structure for this to have a lot of wind in it. It's hard to believe it can go any higher than that. Very warm water still underneath it, but regardless, the right side of this eye wall where it goes on Cross City to Perry, that's going to do a ton of damage with that wind. Now, not all of even that eye wall has 140 mile per hour winds. That's some of the highest that they could find, but 120, yeah, there's a lot of that in that eye wall. For us, obviously, 30s and 40s and 50s and gusts in the 70s to near 80. Those winds are going to slowly start to come down. Look how much the rain has really thinned out, and you can see it here kind of taking off and going off with the storm. And that's the good thing about it moving pretty quickly. The rain is still steady for Crystal River all the way down Sugar Mill Woods, Pine Island still. Brooksville, we're starting to get some breaks, and I think we'll kind of be on and off with the rain. More off, to be honest with you, especially over the next 3 hours or so. But you can see this is what the nature of it will look like all the way through. And this will pretty much continue for 3 or 4 hours. The heavier bands will tend to push their way further out. But how far out do they go? And they're not going to go too far. That's when you start piling up the water. Thank goodness that outer band right there you see in eastern Hardy and DeSoto County towards Sebring to Lake Placid. That one's still moving because that one's putting down more rainfall than anything else. If it were to stall and not move further to the east, it would really start flooding things. They made a new tornado watch. They just cut off the south end. This one goes all the way up into Georgia until 6 a.m. I don't think we have a tornado threat through 6 a.m. But I mean, look, there's a little cell right here. Look at that. That's a good cell. That's going to come swinging on in towards Pasco County, I think, here in about 45 minutes or so if it holds together. So we're going to keep that for a while, but we'll let you know as they start to trim that back. The current winds are showing gusts of 64 in Clearwater, 58 in St. Pete, 69 still in Sarasota, right? And the highest winds still to come. And the other part of this is when the center goes on shore, you got the highest winds right around the center. But as it starts to weaken over land, those higher winds come down, but the whole system spreads out. So you think because it's pulling away, and it's really unique to us here because of our geography where we're located. When you get a landfall and storm up there, you think that high winds, higher, right? And then as it's going away, you get less winds from the south to the north. But what's happened is the storm structure spreads out a little bit. The wind does come down, but then if you're in this one particular area, you're going to keep a solid wind for several hours. And that's prolonging our surge. So those gusts in the 60s will likely continue. I showed you this earlier, 81 mile per hour gust at Egmont Channel. We've got about 5-foot surge at Port Manatee right now. That's right by Egmont Channel. And that gust was hours ago, about 2 hours ago now at this point, right? And the forecast throws that through even midnight tonight, we're still going to be seeing gusts in the 40s and 50s. And key to all of this is now it's still blowing onshore. That's what drove, I mean, we were showing you earlier this afternoon, Paso Grill, St. Pete Beach from our Bellwether beach camera. And you could see there was a lot of swells coming in, but it wasn't, choppy or anything like that. As soon as that wind turned on, it got super choppy, and the water was running up in between the condos and the buildings there. All of those houses on the backside, I can't say the houses themselves, but the ones that I saw on the east side of Gulf Boulevard and Boca Ciega Bay, just southeast of the St. Pete Beach camera that we had, there was water over those roads. So if you had a lifted house, you might be okay, but a lot of those areas have water in those houses. This is 3 a.m. We still have winds in the 20s with gusts in the 30s. There'll be some gusts in the 40s right along the immediate coast at 3 in the morning, but those are still less than what we've had. And then by 6 a.m., still breezy. It'll be breezy all day tomorrow, but you see, obviously, we're getting a lot less wind as we go through sunrise into lunchtime for tomorrow afternoon. So that's going to be all of it. So that we're just trying to time this water, and you saw Eric out there saying the exact same thing. They're kind of seeing it get a little bit higher, but they're expecting it to stay. And that's 2 in the morning, and I think it's going to stay. I could probably extend this up a little bit more and then bring it back down. But that's going to be not only one of the highest surges that we've seen here in decades, in fact, in some places ever, but it will also last long too. This is certainly going to be one. I mean, I remember Madeira Beach, we were watching water over Gulf Boulevard at one point for maybe 2 hours, maybe 2.5, 3 hours during Idalia. It was a quick one. This is going to last 4, 5, 6 hours at least. All right, we've had water all afternoon and evening. Those are some of the numbers I showed you before for the tides. Essentially, tides coming in for just about everybody. So guys, Courtney, Dave, I think we're going to end up, obviously we figured this was going to be the major thing about the surge, but they were talking earlier about, you know, no school on Friday. I was like, there's no way, because these people have to be in the shelters. It's going to be a very slow go of it getting back onto the beaches over the next several days. There's going to be a lot of debris on the roads, and most of that, or at least a lot of it, has to be cleared before they let people out there. So just pack patience. You're going to have it here over the next, honestly, next 24 hours, next week, right? We're going to be cleaning up for quite some time here.
And you know, our community having to clean up and deal with so much here from our water, but thinking about, you know, Big Bend, Tallahassee, those areas.
It only gets worse as you go north. But you know, if it's your house and your home's affected and flooded, you know,
of course.
that is what.
And a lot of homes going to be affected.
No doubt about it. We want to take a look at Gulf Boulevard. This is at Causeway Boulevard right here. Check this out.
Whoa!
This is really like a river. This is just completely flooded. Very unusual. We know there are homes around here, and we know those homes are likely affected by this. It just is such a mess. And keep in mind, we're still getting storm surge, so this is not the end of it.
You know, and we were looking at this shot, I'm just checking, about like an hour ago, and much more water here than what we saw just an hour ago at Gulf Boulevard, at Causeway Boulevard. We have Hannah Deneen, who is live for us in Hernando County. We saw her on Hernando Beach, and Hannah, you said that you were going to make a change to where you were, so you felt a little bit safer. Where are you guys now? What have you seen in your move?
Courtney, we're still in Hernando Beach. We're at the Hernando Beach boat ramp where we were earlier this afternoon, just around 3 o'clock, and we haven't seen the water rise that much in the last several hours, maybe an inch or two. It's a bit hard to gauge with this wind blowing. But the wind, that's what I want to talk about right now. That's really the story of what we're seeing out here in Hernando County. As the water, we're of course expecting it to rise as that storm surge comes in throughout the evening. But for now, what we're seeing is a lot of strong wind gusts. Perhaps you can see through the trees that are blowing in the wind, or if you can hear that right there. Lots of signs right here as well, keeping a bit of distance from them per David Shealy's advice. But then further in the distance in this neighborhood over here, we did hear another transformer blow, and we saw them lose power in that area. So high tide here in Hernando Beach, it is at 10 o'clock, so it's within the next hour, and then we expect this water is going to continue to push in overnight. Certainly something we're going to be keeping an eye on for you all, as I know we've been here in Hernando County all day as people in these nearby neighborhoods have been bracing. This is something they are very familiar with. They're bracing for that storm surge and the potential for flooding. Again, they've prepared for the worst. Now they're just hoping for the best.
Hannah, thank you. Live in Hernando County for us this evening. And of course, we'll check back in with her shortly, see where things are. Hernando County, I was just speaking with our chief meteorologist, Bobby Deskins, about timing, especially when we talk about surge, which we have said is going to be the biggest threat to our area right now. That surge, the highest peak that we're going to see, you said, Bobby, Pinellas, Hillsborough counties, probably next hour or so, really, when we're going to see, next couple of hours. Hernando County and Citrus, as we start to move forward into the evening, the overnight hours, we're going to start to see that early morning, so 2 a.m. It's going to vary based on